NFL Week 1's officially in the books, and I went from winning $118,000 yesterday to losing $350 in the final 5 minutes of that game. Thank you to Garrett Wilson. Thank you to the football gods. The good news, though, is we are here to dust ourselves off. It is the first ever SPAGS Rankings here on video. NFL Week 2, we are going to start it out with the QBs. What we're going to do here today, of course, SPAGS, my name, Chris Spags. We all know that. But what it stands for, really, what my name has been retconned into, superior players and great spots, the things that define fantasy football, the things that make me wake up every morning excited to talk ball, to show how much I know ball. It's all about those two things. So what we are going to do today is go position by position, QBs, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. I don't care how long it takes. I'm ranking all of them on Tier Maker today using this little alignment chart. So a little bit different than your usual rankings. We're going to go through and figure out where each guy should belong. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of rank them off of just the vibes only initially. Then I'm going to look at the numbers here. Of course, all the data that I pull from Sports Info Solutions, the EPA numbers, of course, the raw stats, the counting stats that we all look at. We're going to talk about all of it. So let's get into these guys. Let's talk about them all. And I only believe hosts who hold the football the whole entire show. That's, again, proof that I know ball, degree branded football specifically. Let's do it. All right, so let's go alphabetical. Let's do it that way. So first one up is going to be Aaron Rodgers. This is a tragic one. Also, there are going to be some teams here. This is just using actually the Fantasy Stock Exchange guys, Tier Makers, because they did a great job preparing their graphics. And Lord knows I'm not going to do that on Tier Maker. So I'm going to have some of these guys filling in as proxy for their backup or the guy who's actually going to be playing. So Aaron Rodgers, we will say, is filling in for Zach Wilson. Did not have numbers from Monday Night Football yet, but Zach Wilson, I think we all saw yesterday, a player that did not look that great in the pocket, did not look comfortable out there, still was able to move the ball downfield, still competed against the Bills defense. That's not that bad. So Aaron Rodgers himself looks like he'll be out for the year. Not great. For Zach Wilson, though, I'm going to go in the middle here. Let's go a mid spot, a mid player. Probably could go a little bit lower if we're talking about Zach Wilson. But I think just overall a guy that I'm not willing to trust yet. Maybe some chance of him having that boost that comes with an entire offseason being behind Aaron Rodgers, maybe learning about some of the prep, also maybe some clarity from how poorly things went last year, but definitely looking like something that is going to be tough. Looks like a Hayden chart. Hayden's charts look a lot prettier than this is going to look, I think. But let's go. AR. So this is going to be a controversial one to start. I'm thrilled with what AR did in game one. For that being the first game that he had out to show a ceiling here, I tweeted it out. He basically finished ahead of every QB who was drafted in fantasy football this offseason, besides a few guys like Tua, Mac Jones. Besides that, though, he beats out your Trevor Lawrences, beats out your Justin Herbert, beats out all these guys. That said, I looked at the numbers. I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed with what AR put out there. So the things that are good, he did have 10 rushes in that game. He did have 4 red zone rushes in that game. That's great. It's 61% of the team's total rushing yards. That's all great stuff. That said, negative 0.24 EPA per pass, negative 0.2 EPA per drop back. These are basically flat league average numbers. It's going to improve. I think, though, with the pace of this offense, with the fact, too, that Anthony Richardson, again, just didn't show a whole lot in game one, I can't classify him as a superior player, even though I think he is. I think the pace and the rushing makes this a little bit more of a great spot for right now. So I'm going to say this is a great spot, but I think he is going to be closer to a mid player to start us off here. Thank you for adding names pictures. Yes, shout out to the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Those guys doing all the work here for me. And confirmed Aaron Rodgers complete tear for the Achilles. Sad day for the Jets fans, but hopefully they will survive. Brock Purdy, another guy who I think somebody that I don't necessarily talk a lot about, somebody that we've had some questions about during the offseason, the elbow stuff, him coming off of that. That said, in his debut or his return, I guess, from all this, 0.07 EPA per pass. Not great under pressure, but still overall the numbers looking pretty good for Brock, of course, across the board. 0.11 EPA per drop back. So basically every time he's touching the ball, he's creating value. I do think as well that he is on an offense that looks great. Brock Purdy to me is going to be... I think he's got to go kind of the inverse of Anthony Richardson, where he showed it with the advanced analytics, also has an offense that we think is going to be one of the best in the league. Again, a team playing for a Super Bowl, a team with a lot of weapons around him. So Brock Purdy, I think, looking like a great late round steal so far. Bryce Young, let's look at him. So Bryce Young, negative 0.3 EPA per pass, negative 0.3 EPA per drop back, negative 0.7 EPA when pressured. So not looking great there. Didn't get a lot of runs. It looks like he has 3 rushes in that game, and he was not very effective with them. kind of think this is a mid spot and a mid player. Not quite Zach Wilson tier. I don't want to give him that. But I would say that for me, Bryce Young is going to be... Yeah, Bryce Young, I'm going to put closer to here. So a little bit of a better player than Aaron Rodgers / Zach Wilson. Of course, Aaron Rodgers are proxy for Zach Wilson, but still a guy I don't expect a lot from in this offense, at least from what we've seen so far. Terrace Marshall didn't get loose very much in that game. I think that was a little bit of the offense as much as it was Terrace Marshall. A lot of targets for Hayden Hurst in that game. A lot of stuff that I think maybe portend better stuff to come for Carolina, but we are just going off the 1 week sample size here. And I think right now, Bryce Young would not look too good. CJ Stroud, I was kind of impressed with how he played overall, but the numbers don't look great for him. Negative 0.26 EPA per pass, negative 0.23 EPA per drop back. So better than Bryce Young, not quite great. CJ Stroud also fell apart under pressure, a negative 1.7 EPA when being pressured, and he was pressured a lot in that game. 18 pressure plays for CJ Stroud. So that's kind of a bad spot. I think he is a better player than CJ Stroud, but I do think the spot is worse. So I'm gonna have them overlap. They're gonna do a little kissy face here. CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, similar, not too far away. Spags, I don't even know you anymore. AR mid, no jersey for you. It's all upside. It's all upside from here. He's going to get better. It's going to improve, but we got to start somewhere. He's in a great spot. Now he needs to show more. I'm going to be fair here. I can't just let my priors dictate everything. I have to look at the numbers, have to say what they are. But of course, 1 week sample this week. Next week, get a 2 week sample. So it'll improve, it'll increase, and maybe give us a shot for better AR. Dak in the spot. So Dak, 0.14 EPA per pass. Let's see, 0.15 EPA per drop back. Offense looked very efficient. Dak in his run game stuff did not run very much. Just had one rush in that game, it looks like. Let me make sure that's correct. Yeah, one rush in that game. So not a great rushing role. In fantasy, I do think, guys, the rushing role going to push me more towards it being a great spot. But Dak performed well here. Better than average for sure. I think this is still... I still think this is not a great spot for him. I think there's a few guys we're going to talk about on Dallas who actually are in great spots in this offense. For Dak, I'm going to put him closer to a mid spot, but I will make him closer to a superior player than a mid player. Weighted for defense, no, EPA is just pure performance. So basically, it says that, let's say, a 1st and 10 on one drive, you then convert that downfield, move it in a certain way where it's all in the hands of Dak Prescott. He's then going to add more expected points onto that because basically when you move the ball closer, when you convert on 3rd downs and long, let's say, you basically make the drive more efficient, more likely to score points. So that's what the metric is. We are not weighting this for defense. This is a vibes-based thing off of an actual analytic that I think is very useful and looking good for my best ball portfolio so far. Daniel Jones looking really bad. Negative 0.9 EPA per pass. Not so nice. Negative 0.69 EPA per drop back. He did run a lot in that game, though that was kind of out of necessity with how Dallas really brought the pressure on him. He was pressured on a good amount of snaps overall. 22 snaps was pressured in that game. And actually, looks like he handled them decently well. No, never mind. I was looking at Derek Carr's numbers. Negative 1.1 EPA per drop back when being pressured for Daniel Jones. Negative 0.3 EPA per rush overall. But 13 rushes is hard to ignore. The Vanilla Vic thing, as I've mentioned, he's not Michael Vick. He's not elusive. He's not really good at running the football. But volume is the main thing here. So I actually think he's in a pretty great spot. But boy, that first performance, I think you got to put him beneath AR, even though analytically, not as far off as it might seem. Derek Carr. Derek Carr is another guy who I thought, looking through the numbers, had a better game than I expected. I had a 0.06 EPA per pass, 0.03 EPA per drop back. So we're looking at basically average, keeping the thing on schedule for the most part. Handled pressure really well, though. 0.1 EPA per pressure drop back. Actually looks pretty good for Derek Carr. He's got weapons around him that I do think will make it easier for him to handle pressure, get the ball downfield. So I will say for Derek Carr, I think he's analytically looks better than mid. For me, I don't want to put him in a superior player spot. And I don't think he's in a great spot overall with this offense. So he's just going to be a little bit above on everything. That is where Derek Carr goes. Also, this is going to be a 3-hour video, huh? I do all these positions. Deshaun Watson, negative 0.3 EPA per pass, negative 0.1 EPA per drop back, negative 1 EPA when getting pressured. Deshaun, though, did run an okay amount in that game, I believe. Let me double check that. He ran 5 times that game. Was actually really good as a runner. 0.9 EPA when running the ball. So I guess Deshaun, the rushing upside, an offense that should be better. That was a really ugly game against Cincinnati where I kind of give him some grace. I guess if we're going to give Cincinnati grace on the other side, probably have to give Deshaun some, even though nobody probably deserves it less. Deshaun, I think, in a good spot right now, looking like a mid player, but is he as mid as AR in terms of the performance? He's better than Daniel Jones. I think I'm going to put him basically even with AR. Not as good of a spot because, again, the pace of play, the overall rushing volume for AR, the red zone rushing for AR, I think is more valuable. But Watson, I think, in a good spot, but overall needs to show us more, needs to improve, needs to show that what we saw last year was really not the whole thing that he has to offer himself this year. Desmond Ridder, negative 0.24 EPA per dropback, negative 0.2 EPA also per pass. So not a great number overall. Desmond Ridder was destroyed when he got pressured. He only got pressured 5 times in that game, but a negative 5.8 EPA per dropback when getting pressured. It's an extra small sample size to only be pressured 5 times. That's the good sign, is that he was not pressured a lot. The bad sign, though, is that if he is pressured, it is going to be really bad for him. I've made my entire case this entire offseason that it's going to be Desmond Ridder, that the team is not going to let them kill him. It's just going to be him being a fancy game manager, I think, for the most part. If they are going to win games, that's their pathway to doing it. It's going to be on the backs of Bijan, the backs of Tyler Algier. So I do think that Ridder, to me, is a player that doesn't stand out as being too appealing. He didn't even run that much in that game, only 1 rush. So I think Desmond Ridder, bad spot, bad player. You know what? This is going to be a hot take. I'm actually going to put him in the Zach Wilson tier. I am not impressed by Desmond Ridder. I think Atlanta can go a million different ways, and it would feel a lot better for him. Shout out to the Squirt Squad. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to all you guys hanging out here. Of course, this video is going to be a journey. I had no idea how long this would be. Figured I could give snippets for each guy and go through fast, but that's not going to, I don't think it's going to work out that way. But we pursue, we push forward. Geno Smith, 0.12 EPA per pass, negative 0.1 EPA per dropback. So I was able to do okay when he got a pass off, was getting a little bit too pressured though. 10 pressured plays for a negative 0.5 EPA. Geno, to me, I think I've talked about it. I think he's going to regress this year. I thought he ran a little bit too hot last year. The rushing upside, it looks like in the first game was not there very much, just 1 rush in that game, and he's perfectly fine with it. 0.24 EPA per rush. That said, Geno's going to have better weeks. For right now, though, I'm not impressed with the spot. I'm not impressed with the player. I think we'll put him above this rookie and Desmond Ridder and Zach Wilson tier, but he is not filling me with confidence yet. I think we could see the run bad this year for Geno, is how I feel about it. How did Daniel Jones do against pressure? He had the negative 1.1 EPA per dropback, of course, 24 pressure dropbacks. So was pressured at an incredible rate. And he was also terrible in terms of on-target balls, only a 17% on-target ball when he was pressured. So that was extremely bad. Muted? I hope I'm not muted. You might, if I'm muted, let me know. I shouldn't be. All right, let's keep going here because, again, we have fucking a million QBs hit. Jalen Hurts, really bad debut for Jalen Hurts. In terms of fantasy production, not that great. In terms of the EPA numbers, also not that great. He did go against a Patriots defense that is very good, so I think that gives you a little bit of slack to give Jalen Hurts here. Still think that he is going to be a superior player, and I really don't want to put him in this bottom tier spot, but I think a great team, a team that's going to do better, I think I'm giving Jalen Hurts a little bit of a pass on this one. I'm going to put Jalen Hurts in the middle here. I think he should, honestly, he's not quite Brock Purdy, and he didn't perform like Brock Purdy. So let's demote him slightly behind Brock Purdy. Still a great spot, though. Expect the Eagles to be good. The running back situation, I don't know what's going to go on there. Probably not going to be a good one, but Jalen Hurts should have more rushing upside than he showed that game, should have more passing upside than he showed in that game, and he still ran 9 times, so honestly, you can make the case this should be closer to here. 9 rushes in a game. He averaged 10 last year. Hard to ignore Jalen Hurts being this good. Or being good again, rather. This first week, though, not so hot. Jared Goff. Jared Goff, of course, picks up the big win in Kansas City. Overall, though, the numbers don't look spectacular. Negative 0.1 EPA per pass, negative 0.2 EPA per dropback. Didn't force it downfield very much. Just 1 deep target, and he had a negative 1.4 EPA on that one, so he's not adding value there. Jared Goff, to me, is kind of the definition of mid. I do think he's in a good spot because of this team. I do think they're going to have success. But as a player, I think he is Deshaun tier, but he doesn't run. So I think we got to put him lower than Deshaun. Let's put Jared Goff right here. Jimmy Garoppolo. So Jimmy Garoppolo looked great. Looked great analytically. I think Denny Carter today, I saw tweeting that Jimmy Garoppolo is a player that makes a case against analytics because he's always leading in every category. That is the case in Vegas so far. 0.23 EPA per pass, 0.1 EPA per dropback, 0.72 EPA when being pressured. Was only pressured 8 times in that game, but still had a 100% catchable ball rate. Jimmy Garoppolo, as guys like Sam Sherman have talked about, that I've talked about on the stream as well, is an improvement on Derek Carr. He's a better professional QB who's not going to fuck up. He's not going to make the mistakes. He's not going to be in his own head like Derek Carr was at parts of last year. And we saw how Derek Carr used Devontae Adams to set up Jacoby Myers. I thought that was really impressive. I don't know if this is a great spot. I do think Jimmy Garoppolo is low-key kind of a superior player. I know people don't want to hear that. He doesn't run, whatever, all that stuff. Though he did run a little bit more in this game. Actually ran 9 times in this game. So based off the 1-week sample, I think he's above Brock Purdy. I don't think this is going to last, to be clear. I'm just going off the data from 1 week. I think that was a really strong showing by Jimmy Garoppolo, and let's see if he can keep building on it. Of course, got banged up in part of that game, so I don't know if he's going to be healthy enough for the run here, especially if he's going to run 9 times in a game. But fuck, if he's going to run 9 times in a game and be efficient passing the ball and have logical targets to go with, Jimmy Garoppolo actually looks pretty good. So there we go. Joe Burrow was about as bad can be. Negative 0.6 EPA per pass, negative 0.6 EPA per drop back. When pressured, he also had a negative 0.6. So just everything, he was taking value off the table. Downfield, 4 downfield targets, negative 0.9 per target on those. It's going to run better for him. You're not going to have days where T. Higgins doesn't catch any targets at all. Maybe the contract stuff is in his head a little bit. But Burrow, I think just to couch it, to keep it safely here, he performed closer to a full mid player, full mid spot. But let's put him right here in the middle, around Derek Carr. Did show us something. Jordan Love, one of my other big stands here. He, in a limited sample last year, in particular the game where he played the Eagles, looked absolutely fantastic. That said, Jordan Love, again, fantastic once again against a Chicago defense that, like I talked about, very beatable. This would have been the Christian Watson explosion game. Instead, we see 2 fucking whatever, Romeo Dobbs touchdowns. Doesn't matter. Jordan Love, though, 0.4 EPA per pass, 0.36 EPA per target. These are among the best marks of everybody in the league. Did have some issues when he was pressured 5 times, negative 0.3 EPA per pressure. That's still not that bad. You are going to get negative numbers when you are pressured as much as any QB is going to be. Did have 4 deep targets in that game. Didn't convert him that well. Negative 0.07 EPA on those throws. And he ran 3 times. So it's not quite a great spot, but he looks really good. So Jordan Love, I think we're going to put him closer to the middle here, a little bit of running. I think he's better than Derek Carr with what he put on tape, but not quite Jimmy Garoppolo tier. So Jordan Love teetering on a superior player. And I think once he gets Christian Watson back, I think we are going to see some massive explosion games from Jordan Love. That was what you want to see. If you're a Packers fan, if you're somebody that invested in Jordan Love, like I am, if you're somebody that invested in Christian Watson, who hopefully is going to be back this week. We'll see. Seems like it's looking good for him. Not going to be on IR, but maybe won't go this week. Either way, though, Jordan Love, somebody not to sleep on. If he's available in your season-long leagues, get him. Like, I think he is a player that could really have been undervalued this entire offseason. Josh Dobbs is on my screen. Let's just do Josh Dobbs real fast. Josh Dobbs was trash, negative 0.35 EPA per pass, negative 0.52 EPA per drop back. When pressured, negative 0.9, and was pressured 14 times. Only threw 1 deep ball in that game, only ran 3 times. Kyler Murray filling in for Josh Dobbs, mid player, mid spot. He's the worst, I think. He is the worst in terms of both. Let's put him right here. So still a little bit of cover there where we have Zach Wilson as Aaron Rodgers, slightly worse, but I think that Josh Dobbs is Kyler Murray looking pretty bad. Don't have Josh Allen's numbers from yesterday, but we saw it with our eyes. I think still a good spot, still ran the ball well, having Stephon Diggs as a target there. He is a guy that I have loved this entire offseason. He is an EPA per target darling. Josh Allen, though, not great start for him. Obviously, losing that game hurt me in terms of that DK showdown I mentioned earlier. Not great at all for him to get outscored by so many guys. There are some people on social media that feel like Josh Allen is somebody that has potential to regress because of his elbow issue, his UCL, which he never fully recovered from, I guess, in terms of how medical doctors or Twitter doctors view it. Josh Allen, I think, is going to be, based off the 1 week sample size, I'm going to put him in this where we give him a little bit of grace. He's still in a good spot, still a good player, but we got to kind of knock him down to this Jalen Hurts here. Hey, Spags, where do you find these numbers/stats? I get them from Sports Info Solutions, which I would fully recommend. It is a pricier data package than some of the other ones you're going to get out there, but you can chop up the EPA stats. You can chop up a bunch of different stats in a variety of ways, so I recommend it. I personally got tired of PFF moving things around every year. Football Outsiders died, so the stats out there, you're basically choosing between the evil of FTN. No offense to our FTN friends, but... yeah. And or a site like Sports Info Solutions, and I think they are great. So I would pay for them if I didn't get it for free. But that's the one I use. So check them out. All right. Justin Fields, tough start for Justin Fields. Negative 0.3 EPA per pass, so showing no growth there. Negative 0.3 EPA per drop back, rounded up. Took 2 deep shots and actually was really good with them. 1.6 EPA per drop back on the deep plays. So I think he converted 1 to Mooney in that game. That looks good. 9 rushes as well. So would like to see the volume increase on the deep throws. Would like to have a little more efficacy with how he approaches every drop back. But I think the rushing upside, I think the potential to be better is still there. Green Bay was a good defense last year. They didn't lose anything to make them a bad defense. So I think we can give Justin Fields some grace. He is not a superior player, though. He has not shown that yet. So I'm going to put him in this Hurts Allen tier. I think that we can put him a little bit lower. Maybe I'll bump up. Yeah, let's bump up Allen and bump up Hurts a little bit so we can give Justin Fields a bit more room. But I think Justin Fields kind of belongs around here. The rushing upside's hard to ignore. If he just gets to average at QB, like I've been saying all offseason, I think Justin Fields can be closer to a superior player. Right now, though, absolutely not showing it. Josh Allen is basically Brett Favre with a weaker arm. I think they have pretty equivalent arms. I mean, unless we're counting the elbow injury, but I think they're pretty equivalent arm strength. Josh Allen, a little bit less mistake prone than Brett Favre was at points of his career. I think especially towards that one stretch where he was just chucking it up both in Green Bay and Minnesota. And then I guess a little bit on the Jets too. So really that was just the home stretch of his career, but that's not a bad comp. The rushing upside though changes the equation quite a bit, I would think. Justin Herbert. So Justin Herbert was not Tua in that game. Tua we're going to talk about in a minute. Tua might beat Jimmy Garoppolo overall, but we'll see when we get there. This spot, though, for Justin Herbert, negative 0.04 EPA per pass, 0 EPA per drop back. So that's fine. Those are pretty good numbers. Pressured dropbacks, 14 in that game, negative 0.7. That's about average, it looks like. 7% touchdown rate. Took 3 shots at a 0.4 EPA per target, 3 shots downfield, rather, of 20-plus air yards. So not as much as I would have expected in this Kellen Moore offense. Maybe Miami does have some changes defensively where Vic Fangio's over there. So perhaps that's part of why the Miami defense, despite giving up so many points, maybe shut down the deep ball a little bit more. But I did expect more volume for Herbert going downfield. He had 5 rushes at a 0.3 EPA per rush. That's not too bad. So Herbert, I think this is going to look better some weeks. And I think it might be a little bit of Miami's defense scheming to kind of take away the blown off the top kind of plays, the splash plays, as they're called in football. I will go for Herbert. I don't think we can say it's a great spot yet. I don't think we can call him a mid player either. I think he's going to be a little bit higher than Allen and Hurts on the superior part. No, let's put him it's right in the middle here. Allen had a bad week. Herbert had an okay week. Hurts had a bad week, but we know what he can do. I think that's why we're going to rank those guys in that order. Kenny Pickett, another guy who kind of the inverse of Jordan Love, where I really had the highest hopes for him. And boy, he ran into a buzzsaw with that Niners defense. Negative 0.5 EPA per pass, negative 0.4 EPA per drop back. When he was pressured, So he was pressured 10 times in that game. Negative 1.9 EPA per drop back when being pressured. That is egregiously bad. That does not bode well for Kenny Pickett. Also, hopefully my connection will stabilize here. I don't know why the Wi-Fi drops when I am on a connected connection, but we are moving on anyway. Only 2 deep targets in that game. On those deep targets, Kenny Pickett at a negative 1.7 EPA. So that looked pretty bad. Pickett also only ran once. I think it's going to get better. I think a lot of that you can attribute to the Niners D, which, as I've talked about, was one of the best in the league last year, one that could actually absolutely win them Super Bowls, even without that high-powered offense. So Kenny Pickett, I am going to have in this tier here based off the 1 week. I think he was worse than Stroud. I think he was worse than Bryce. I think he created less value for his teammates than both those guys, or at least Stroud created value theoretically for Woods and Nico Collins. Bryce Young had the big day for Hayden Hurst. So that's a lot to look at there that I think looks better than Kenny Pickett, who created value for nobody. And it is going to get tougher for Kenny Pickett. The news before the stream started today, Deontay Johnson going to be out with the hamstring issues for a little bit longer than people had hoped. So that's going to be pretty tough. Kirk Cousins, let's see. Of course, always reviled. Solid. Negative 0.02 EPA per pass, negative 0.1 EPA per drop back. Obviously, you don't want to see the negatives, but that's fine. He was pressured 10 times, negative 0.8 EPA per pressure play. Had a 10% touchdown rate, though, so he was getting downfield. He was actually killer downfield. Took 3 deep shots, 3.1 EPA per drop back on those. Ran 3 times. The downfield stuff is pretty interesting, though. I think that for me, the downfield stuff is what stood out the most. Hitting that deep play to Addison, I thought looked really good. Just being willing to take shots, I think looks pretty good. There is also, I'm going to say it out loud, vague trade rumors that have swirled out there, at least innuendos that maybe the Vikings can move Kirk Cousins to the Jets if they do panic about the Zach Wilson stuff. Kirk Cousins, I think in his last year of his contract, or I know in the last year of his contract, there's a lot of innuendo that he might not be in the long-term plans for Minnesota. So it could be a part of a Vikings tank after they blow a game to Tampa Bay. We'll see though. Either way though, Kirk Cousins, I think the downfield stuff looks good. I think the downfield play alone makes me think that he is a superior player by a little bit. I'm going to put him, he shouldn't be better than Derek Carr, right? He shouldn't be. I'll put him in between Carr and Herbert here. Here for the AR victory lap. I mean, the victory lap I talked about earlier, like I think he's in a great spot. I do think he's got to show more as a player. But for a start, for a first game, for a thing that you build on and set the foundational pieces for, it's going to get better. That said, there's going to be some things on film. You might have seen the data point where basically all of Anthony Richardson's throws were to the right side of the field. That's going to have to get cleaned up a little bit. It makes sense for a first game. Heading into week 2, though, you can't quite attack it the same way because the defense is going to be completely prepared for it. So there's some risks to AR still, but again, if you're going to run almost 10 times a game, get 4 red zone rushes, and also eventually at some point they are going to open it up downfield, give him more deep shots. He only had 1 in that game. I think AR is still in a good spot, but really he's just a good fantasy play. He's not a good real life player yet, I don't think, based on what we've seen. One guy, by the way, that's not on this list, because again, I didn't make it, so blame the Fantasy Stock Exchange guys. Baker Mayfield, we have to talk about. I don't have a proxy for Baker Mayfield here. Let's use Trey Lance as our proxy for Baker Mayfield. So Baker Mayfield fucking shocked me. So Baker Mayfield's numbers, and again, last year, if you went just week 1, you would think that Carson Wentz is one of the best QBs in football. He beat the Jags. It looked great for him. Then it all went to shit after that. That said, Baker, 0.08 EPA per pass, 0.04 EPA per dropback, got pressured only 8 times. And when he did, he was mostly okay with a negative 0.4 EPA. Also took 4 deep shots, was not great there, negative 0.06 EPA on those. But just the ability to keep the offense afloat, just the ability to be used. Our Trey Lance, Baker Mayfield here, I think is not a superior player, but I think he is actually in the middle of the pack here and might have some upside until things start to get squirrely for Tampa Bay. Do you hear about, so we just want to talk AR. Do you hear the announcer say he's got to learn to take hits after a 3-yard draw play where it's basically impossible to not take a hit? I think it's more that he kind of pushes into the hit a little bit more than as opposed to some guys that kind of move away from the hit, because I think he's got a big body. He's used to that contact creating more value for himself. So I agree there's something to that, but you don't want to take lower body hits over and over again. RG3 had to learn that. Obviously AR is a lot bigger than RG3, but it's going to be part of the process. So that's nothing too surprising there. All right, we got Lamar. We're almost going to knock all these out in a half hour. So this might legit be a 2-hour stream. Strap in, guys. I'm going to fucking do this. I don't care how it goes. Lamar, 30 dropbacks, negative 0.3 EPA per pass, negative 0.1 EPA per dropback. Was terrible when pressured, negative 1.6 EPA per play. Lamar, there have been reports, and this is something that I kind of ignored, and I think a lot of the fantasy industry kind of ignored. There were reports from Baltimore that Lamar was not maybe gravitating to this offense as much as he thought. And obviously he wanted the control. He wanted all that stuff. He did show some upside downfield, 3 passes of 20+ air yards and a 1.9 EPA on those plays. That said, I think that the signs were there this entire offseason that Baltimore might not be as competent of an offense, at least from week 1, as we had hoped for, as fantasy people certainly hoped for. Zay Flowers looked good, but Lamar did not. Lamar, though, still ran 6 times, didn't get a red zone run in that game. It's still a 0.3 EPA per run for him on 6 run plays. So I think Lamar is in a good spot, but he did not show me enough in that game. I'm going to put him in this Hurts Allen malaise here. Guys that need to show us more, guys that should be better, but I'm just going to plant a flag that I think that maybe this offense is not for Lamar. Maybe this Monken offense that gives so much QB control, so much QB optionality, maybe it's not for him. I don't know. I'm just going to say it out loud, and we'll see how it goes. Mac Jones, good fantasy numbers, though. Advanced analytics would show that he was, in fact, not that good. A lot of his value came from 54 pass attempts in that game, which would be the highest in week 1. He had a negative 0.3 EPA per pass, negative 0.3 EPA per drop back on deep plays. Or on pressure plays, negative 0.5 on pressure plays. That's okay. He handled pressure decently well. Still at an 80% catchable ball rate, 73% on target. That looks pretty good. 5 deep targets in that game. It was terrible with him. Negative 0.4 EPA per target on his deep throws. Ran 2 times and was fine with that. Mac, I think, is someone who's going to regress pretty heavily. So Mac, to me, I think mid-player if the volume is going to be there, it is closer to a good spot than a bad spot. So I think Mac actually finds his way in the lower end of this, where he's in a good spot. He's not running a lot, but this offense is going to clearly have some pass volume. He should be behind Deshaun, though, because Deshaun does run. Let's move Deshaun up, put Mac Jones here. And now he's in the Goff Watson vortex. That feels right for Mac Jones. Bold, but maybe true takes. We love it. And if you troll me once, take it back. I'm just saying what I am seeing so far. It's week one. Week one is so early. These will build. We'll build up more data. It'll be more efficient as we go. So speaking of week one, Matthew Stafford. We are talking about contenders for Jimmy Garoppolo's superior player crown in the SPAGS rankings. Matthew Stafford, 0.4 EPA per pass, 0.42 EPA per dropback. So actually, despite being completely immobile for the most part, Matthew Stafford was better per dropback than he was per pass. So he did create a little bit of value through his ability to run, which is shocking. He was pressured 8 times in that game, had a positive EPA when pressured, 0.14 EPA when pressured, despite a low catchable ball rate of 38%. I would think that balances out, but still impressive. Anytime anybody can have a positive EPA when being pressured, because even the best QBs have negative EPAs when being pressured. That said, Stafford also targeting downfield, 5 targets downfield, the 1.1 EPA on those throws. And then he ran 2 times and was okay running 2 times as well. For two times for Matthew Stafford, whose spine is basically like a pro wrestler who's been thrown off of ladders. I think that looks pretty good. I think he's Garoppolo tier. Relative to week one and the value he created for his guys who are absolute fucking nobodies. Like I know I touted Puka Nacua during the offseason too. Tutu I wasn't as big on, but we kind of know what Tutu was. That role that Tutu and Tutu and Puka had is basically Cooper Kupp's role split into 2, and they both had 119 yards doing it. So that credit's got to go to somebody. Puka was good in college. Tutu has some deep shot ability that we see in the pros. But I think that's all Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. So I actually think for me, for week one, Matthew Stafford, I would put is the most superior player so far. Stafford is mankind. Not far off. His spine probably looks the same as old Mick Foley's did when he got thrown off the Hell in a Cell. Did we lose out in a Rodgers Elite Fantasy season? I mean, he didn't complete a pass on his one drive. So he was on base and never completed a pass. All right, we got a few QBs left, and we can hit running backs. Patrick Mahomes. A tough start for Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, he's going to get the most grace out of any QB. Negative 0.1 EPA per pass, negative 0.1 rounded up EPA per dropback. When he was pressured, he was pressured a lot. 21 pressure plays, negative 0.1 EPA on pressure plays, which again, every QB is negative on pressure plays besides Matthew Stafford, who's the greatest QB ever. 7 deep shots by Patrick Mahomes, but negative 0.03 EPA on those. That doesn't look great. 6 rushes, though. He does always add value as a rusher, kind of sneakily, and maybe has more upside as a rusher if the pass catchers are going to keep doing what they did in week one. So I would say for Mahomes, he goes in this tier out of respect. But I think, honestly, with the receivers being what they are, he probably should not be in a great spot. So I'm going to put Mahomes ahead of Hurts, ahead of Allen, ahead of Herbert in terms of being a superior player, because we know things are going to get better. For week one, though, that was not a good start for Patrick Mahomes. All right, we got a few QBs here left. Let's try to breeze through these because we got to fucking get through running backs, and I got to this is gonna be fun, guys. 0.01 EPA per pass for Russ, negative 0.01 EPA per dropback for Russ. So a little bit worse as a rusher than he was as a passer in that game. Handled pressure decently well, 13 pressure plays, negative 0.3 EPA per dropback on those. 2 deep targets in that game. So they were really, again, playing full Joe Lombardi ball, check downs, close to the line of scrimmage, ended up working out okay for him, I guess. But Russ, just nothing, mid player, mid spot. Russ, to me, I think he's worse in both these. So he's not quite Jets here. Russ, I'm going to put right here. Just not impressed with him. I guess he was closer to average. Here, there we go. There's the respect for Russ, but not that impressed. How much of a leash does Tony have with all the drops? If it comes out like that again next week, I think, things start to get weird. But he's not been a high drop guy throughout his career. He's a professional receiver. So drops like that, I always expect to regress back positively the other way. I think he's got a lot of leash. I mean, again, you have to remember he basically won the Super Bowl last year. So they're going to give him as much grace as possible. And they've talked him as a wide receiver 1. Mahomes looked for him on the high leverage plays. That's what matters the most to me. So I wouldn't worry about Kadarius Toney, but of course we'll talk about him when we get to the receivers. Ryan Tannehill, Just stinky performance. Negative 0.35 EPA per pass, negative 0.34 EPA per dropback, negative 1.3 EPA on pressure plays, 4 deep targets, negative 1.7 EPA on those plays. He got to run 3 times, had a negative 0.5. Wow. Ryan Tannehill might be the worst player from week 1. The worst QB from week 1. I don't love the spot. I don't love the team. I don't love Tannehill. I'm going to put him in this morass of rookies. So this is about as disrespectful as I can get to Ryan Tannehill. And Will Levis, I guess you can come along for the ride too. Let's put Tannehill above Levis if we can. but Tannehill, there we go. Both of them can go hang out here. Tannehill, Will Levis, whatever. There we go. I don't know why this one is now above it. It's going to bother me. Here, they're just one guy. All right. Last 3 QBs. Sam Howell, negative 0.3 EPA per dropback, negative 0.2 EPA per dropback, negative 0.3 EPA per pass. Under pressure plays, over a negative 1 EPA per play. On deep throws, he actually did connect on one deep. No, that's not him. That's Trevor Lawrence. Sorry. No, that is correct. Next on one deep throw, 2.5 EPA on that deep throw. But with Sam Howell, you really would have thought, based on how he played in college, that he would get more throws downfield. You think he would also run a little bit more, ran 2 times in that game, did punch in a touchdown. So that does look pretty good from a 1.1 EPA per rush on those plays. But Sam Howell, I'm not impressed by. The Cardinals' D was clearly a bit improved with Jonathan Gannon bringing in some Eagles principles. But I think Sam Howell should have shown more in week 1. So I think he belongs. Didn't show a whole lot in the field. I think he's in the rust here. He and Geno, guys that we can watch out for, guys that can move honestly either way. But I think that looks right to me. Trevor Lawrence had so many fucking stands this offseason, and he did not show it that he was deserving of it in week 1. Negative 0.3 EPA per pass, negative 0.4 EPA per drop back. 8 pressure plays, and he had one of the worst marks on the slate with a negative 0.26, negative 2.6. So that's incredibly bad. Trevor Lawrence, really, really bad under pressure in that one start. That's not good. Did still have an 85% catchable ball rate on those plays, so maybe that's kind of the result of his receivers not coming through, but still only took 2 deep shots, was pretty good with them, 1.6 EPA on the 2 deep shots, ran 7 times. Trevor Lawrence has to show me more as a player. I think he will. But I think the running, the team there, he goes slightly lower than Herbert, I think. But I would still put him above Mac because higher pedigree, more talent, all that stuff makes sense. You got to love morass. I'm sure Tyler loves morass the most. All right, Tua, our last contender to be the quintessential superior player here at QB in the SPAGS rankings. 0.6 EPA per pass, 0.3 EPA per dropback, 17 pressure plays. He had 0.5 EPA per play on those, or per target on those. He also threw it deep 8 times in that game. That's double most QBs average in a game. 8 times with a 0.9 EPA on those plays, completed 5 of them, and had a 75% catchable ball rate. He also threw touchdowns on 13% of those plays when he was thrown downfield, and he still ran 5 times. It's terrible running the ball, too. Was not a great runner. Negative 1.5 EPA per run. Running 5 times, Tua is in the best spot. He was, for week 1, the best player. Tua Tagovailoa, your apex predator, and the MVP odds have also soared for him, and I think they should. Okay, guys, we got 3 more positions left to hit, so let's pander briefly. Let's hold on. Let me not pull it up yet. Guys, this would be a great time for you to subscribe down below. Of course, Splash Play on the march of 3,000 subs. 5 days a week of shows every single day at 11 a.m. That goes on here on Splash Play because I know ball. I'm obsessed with ball, and I know you are too. So come join Splash Play. Of course, if you're watching after the fact, don't be afraid to leave a comment. And please hit the like button. Please help us out with hitting the like button if you can. Let's go on to these goddamn RBs. Of course, I am the biggest RB hater in the world, and that looks great for my portfolio so far. But let's see. Yeah, like and sub, and Spag's going to give you a no balls handy dandy. Thank you so much. Tua's ADP was wrong all offseason. I don't know that it was wrong. I think it was that people were afraid of the concussion risk, but if you believed, like I did, that this passing offense would continue to be a passing offense at high volume and a high rate, and also that another year to kind of pick up the offense and add some wrinkles to it was going to help. That's the play. And I said it from fucking in May that I thought a 2 AR stack could win you Best Ball Mania. I think a 2 AR stack can win you Best Ball Mania and hopefully will win me Best Ball Mania. But we're on to these stinky running backs. So let's do that. I'm going to sort my column here to make sure I'm only looking at running backs for this part. We're going to find out who's good and who's not. And let's start it. Let me sort it. Let me sort in alphabetical order so I can try to make this work better. Sorry, guys. We're getting the live version of this. There's no pre-tapes here. We do it all on the fly. All right, Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones banged up, supposedly going to be able to play in week 1. Let's start it off with him, though. How many fucking running backs are going to be on this chart? Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, okay. Let's just talk about these guys in batches. And Aaron Jones overall, 0.2, 0.3 EPA per rush, 1.4 EPA per pass was a big part of the game plan with Jordan Love. Ran 9 times, not getting a ton of volume, only had 13 intended touches overall compared to 16 for A.J. Dillon. But I do think he's a better player than A.J. Dillon, so I'm going to say he's not in a great spot. He's in kind of an okay spot. Actually, he should be closer to the middle here. But he is a superior player. Aaron Jones goes there. A.J. Dillon, more volume, less efficient with all of it. Negative 0.4 EPA per rush, 0.3 EPA per pass. He is just a more muscular, not as good Aaron Jones. We are going to go to A.J. Dillon here as the... I'm going to give him a better spot because of the volume, though it does feel like the high value touch is not going to be there quite as much. 3 red zone rushes, 1 inside the 5 for Aaron Jones compared to 3 red zone rushes, 2 inside the 5 for A.J. Dillon. Great, honestly, great red zone work for both of them, honestly. They both should come up here. This is a good spot, man. This Packers offense, I think, is pretty potent. So I'm going to have some fun with this one. SPAGS running back is 8-hour stream. Yes, stay hydrated. Good call. Cheers to all you guys out there. Here's to the running backs who are going to fucking suck my energy away here. All right, let's do it. Is AR a more muscular Lance? No, he's not. No, he's not. We're not there yet. They didn't allow him to throw it downfield, which is the big strength of AR. But we'll find that out. Alexander Mattison. Alexander Mattison, actually better than you would think with the advanced analytics. 0.06 EPA per rush, 0.08 EPA per pass, 15 intended touches in the game, which included 11 rushes. Did have a 18% avoided tackle rate, which is not great, but not bad. Avoided tackles a little bit better when catching the ball, 33% avoided tackle rate there. 3 red zone rushes, 2 red zone targets. Still a pretty good role for Alexander Mattison. He needs to be better, but I guess analytically he was pretty good. Just didn't really show much. So I am going to say that he is better than average, and he's in a good spot. So I'm going to put him next to A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon, I'm actually going to bump down a little bit because I don't think he's actually a superior player. I think he's closer to average. A.J. Dillon comes down. Bears are bad. Bears are dunzo. There we go. Fields can't see the field to save his life unless he's running. It's got to get better. I think it's got to get better. The Packers D is still pretty okay. Like, it's not, I know we want to look at the Fields part of it. Fields is going to have some up and down days like most players are. So I wouldn't sweat Fields that much. Do we have Jamal Williams on this list? I don't believe that. No, here's Jamal. All right, so Alvin Kamara, we're not going to use Alvin Kamara for anything. Antonio Gibson, I thought was the lesser running back with the eye test in that game with Brian Robinson. Wow, Antonio Gibson. So he ran 3 times, negative 1.9 EPA per rush, negative 0.2 EPA per target, 4 intended touches in that game. Antonio Gibson, I thought was at least going to have a shot to be in a timeshare. I preferred Brian Robinson, as I've said this entire offseason. I didn't expect to be this bad for Antonio Gibson, though. But 4 touches and a team that really underperformed against the Cardinals, and also he showed nothing with them. Antonio Gibson right now is going to be at the bottom. SPAGS, Bears are not done, but they have work to do. I didn't say they're done. I don't think they're done at all. It's one game. I think they're the team that we thought they were. I think people just wanted them to be world beaters. Same thing for Pittsburgh, where it seems we're really good in the preseason, showed some flashes. Obviously, the Fields, DJ Moore connection for Pickett, how just lights out he was in the preseason. It doesn't always translate to week 1. Like, some of this stuff takes time to get together. So I'm not worried about it. If I were a Bears fan, I'd be worried about the Packers already being better than my team. I think that's actually a decent probability outcome. But I think if you're worried about Fields, like, I wouldn't be. Worst case scenario is that he fucking does the same shit he did last year and ends up getting you Caleb Williams potentially in the future, or you can make a move. There's a lot of ways for them to have outs if Fields is good or Fields is bad. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I didn't say they were done. Then Gibson fumble also. That probably is part of the negative EPA. He stinks. I don't look at fumble rate and stuff because I don't think it's sticky, but definitely one to, if you want to check it out, you can thank him for that too. Austin Eckler had 21 intended touches in that game, though he is hurt with an ankle sprain. So it could be a risky point here. Austin Eckler, I also think, with the contract stuff, if you really want to read some tea leaves, if you want to get full meta about running backs, the best leverage you could have if you're Austin Eckler is to not play another game unless you are wink, wink, 100% healthy, wink, wink, maybe taken care of in some way. I think wouldn't be an insane thing. I don't know that they actually could extend him again because they did give him that new contract, but risk profile for Austin Eckler. That said, with the usage, 21 touches, 5 red zone rushes, 1 target in the red zone. Hard to argue that usage. Austin Eckler, I think, good player, good spot. Don't think he's fully superior. He only had a 6% avoided tackle rate. That is not good for a guy who's as small as him. Again, injury history, not great. So I'll put him above Madison. I'll put him near Jones, but I think mostly a great spot for Austin Eckler for sure. Who do we got next? Who do we got? Bijan. Okay, Bijan's a fun one. Bijan, so running the ball, negative 0.1 EPA per rush, positive 0.1 EPA per target, had 16 touches in that game. Only 1 in the red zone was a rush. 2 red zone targets in that game. Obviously did convert the 1 into a touchdown. The Bijan question to me becomes, do you think that Tyler Algier, that he seizes anything from Tyler Algier? Because I don't. I think this is a team. I think this is going to be what the run out is for both Bijan and Tyler Algier. So I think Bijan's a good player. I think he's going to show more EPA-wise than he showed in that game. So I'm happy to give him that. I don't know that it's a great spot. 16 touches is kind of that Madison range. I'm going to put him here. I think he's a good player. I'm going to have him a little bit above Madison as a player, but a little bit behind Madison in terms of the spot. I think it's a better spot for Madison right now. Since we just did that, let's try to pair up the backfields. Tyler Algier, go down to him. So Tyler Algier, how did he look? Of course, last year's best analytics running back. This year, the same. 0.06 EPA per rush, which is good. Anytime you have a positive EPA per rush, it's going to be really good for the running back because it means that basically they're more efficient than every running back. Running backs' EPAs tend to be lower. So anytime you get anything positive, that's going to be good. Algier had 18 touches, 4 red zone rushes, 3 rushes inside the 5-yard line. That is tremendous. Also had 3 targets in that game. If I win a tournament this year, I think it's going to be on the back of Tyler Algier. He is a good player in a good spot in a team that does not trust their quarterback. The volume makes it a little bit tough to put him ahead of Eckler in the spot, I think. But I'm going to put Algier right behind Eckler in terms of the spot. And I think analytically, he is a more effective, more efficient player. I don't know if he proved that in week 1. That might be unfair. I'm biased against Tyler Algier. I'm going to put him even with Eckler. I'll put Eckler, actually, no, a little bit above. There we go. So we have our matrix here. Bijan, maybe not as good of a player, not as good of a spot. Algier, I think Algier's great. You guys, my biases. I think Algier's great. Algier will not get to play a Swiss cheese defense every week, though. That's not a Swiss cheese defense. Carolina's pretty good. Carolina was a solid team last year. Granted, they did lose Steve Wilkes as their defensive coordinator, but I think made an okay sub there. So I don't know. I don't think that was a Swiss cheese defense at all. Breece Hall. So I don't have the data on Breece Hall yet. Obviously, the eyeball test, the stats you saw on social media where he initially had the 2 rushes for over 100 yards. He looked a million times better than Dalvin Cook. That said, the usage was not great to start. I think he is a superior player. I think the spot's going to be a little bit tougher for him. I am actually, if the Zach Wilson thing changes the equation materially, where you can load the box and make it tougher on Breece Hall, I still think he'll get results. But I do think because of the existence of Zach Wilson, this is going to be not a great spot for him. So I'm going to actually put Breece slightly above mid in terms of the overall, or average in terms of the overall opportunity. But I think he's great. I was really impressed by Breece Hall. I definitely gave me some pangs of wishing I had more of him in the offseason. But, what are you going to do? I like receivers. Brian Robinson. How did Brian Robinson do? Brian Robinson, negative 0.16 EPA per rush, 0.3 EPA per target. So that's pretty good. 21 intended touches that game for Brian Robinson. So 5X what Antonio Gibson got. Again, you got to feel really bad about those Gibson bags. That said, Brian Robinson didn't avoid a tackle. So that is awful. That's not a thing you want to see. On his catch, too, as one catch he had, I guess it was an end zone target, so whatever, but he didn't avoid anything on that one either. But did have 3 red zone rushes, did have 1 red zone target. Brian Robinson, I think closer to a mid player, but closer to a better spot. 20 touches in volume is hard to ignore. So let's give him a good spot here. He can go, I think he goes ahead of AJ Dillon in terms of the spot. But just, man, not a good player so far. We'll see if it can be better. We'll see if it can get better. Zach Wilson just hurts that entire Jets. I agree. Cardinals defense is something serious. I mean, look, it looked better than it did last year. And a coach coming in who comes from a high pedigree defense, I do think that does give your defense a little bit of a boost. How much of a boost, though? Hard to say. Cam Akers lost a lot of that role to Kyren Williams, and he also had negative 0.2 EPA per rush. Still had 22 intended touches in that game, though. So that is actually a pretty good sign for him. All of them in the run game. So not going to give you PPR points, but for an underdog, 22 rushes is hard to ignore. That said, 4.5% avoided tackle rate, only 2 red zone rushes. The volume is good. The red zone work isn't good. Kyren Williams looking like he's got more juice isn't good. I think Cam Akers, honestly, might be closer to Brian Robinson tier in terms of the skill set, and in not a great spot, even though the volume, maybe the volume, we can give him a little bit more. But this one is like, this Cam Akers spot, Kyren Williams can ruin this Cam Akers spot pretty fast. Chase Brown didn't even play. Whatever, I'll just put him in Antonio Gibson range. That feels disrespectful to Chase Brown. But here, he could be a better player than Antonio Gibson, but Antonio Gibson has got to be the bottom here. Christian McCaffrey. Let's see. Christian McCaffrey. I mean, he's good. I don't know. 0.1 EPA per rush. Actually, negative 0.1 EPA per target, which surprises me. 27 intended touches in that game. So that was not the game where we saw Elijah Mitchell start to take the pressure off them a little bit, even though the Niners were mostly in control. Something to watch out for, because I really did think from week 1 they wouldn't go crazy. Maybe for week 1 they gave McCaffrey the full allotment of touches to give him some stuff on tape, things for other teams to worry about. But if he's going to get that many touches, if he's going to get a Carolina workload, then he's probably up here. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to give a little bit of room in case there's somebody better. McCaffrey, for right now, I think probably the best player in the best spot at running back, and still not avoiding tackles too well. Actually didn't get a ton of red zone work, which surprises me. Only 2 red zone rushes for McCaffrey. But again, great offense, great player, high volume. It's McCaffrey. I got it. Dalvin Cook. I mean, I don't have the numbers yet. Again, it came out yesterday, so unfortunately do not have all the stuff from yesterday yet. Dalvin, though, I think we know how I feel about that. Honestly, again, he's a worse player than Breece, and the spot should be worse for him because I think that Breece is going to earn more touches as we go. So Breece goes there. Dalvin, I think, goes on the flip side here, where he is a little bit worse, a little bit bad at everything. Shout out our guy, Mathology. I almost won with double defenses last night, Mathology, and thought of you, of course, the double D's leader. But shout out to all the guys here. Shout out to the Squirt Squad. Appreciate everybody who's a member. And if you want to join down below, you get access to all the data that I'm talking about right now. I do put out every week now as a sheet here that goes just to the Splash Play members. So hit the join button down below, $4.99 a month if you want to see all the stuff that I am looking at in a given week. Dameon Pierce. Let's see. Dameon Pierce. Oh, Dameon Pierce sucked. Negative 0.4 EPA per rush, negative 0.9 EPA per pass, 14 intended touches, only one of them in the red zone. A lot of that's obviously going to be Houston not moving the ball that well. Didn't even keep his avoided tackle rate. It's only one game, but an 18% avoided tackle rate. Last year, he was at 33%. I've thought this entire offseason that Dameon Pierce is a little bit overvalued. He did not show much analytically that he showed in terms of the pure counting stats. This offense also seems a little bit stinky. I think he's Dalvin range. I can give him a little bit better than Dalvin, but I think that he and Dalvin belong hand in hand in this particular spot. Damian Harris had an okay role. Again, I need to see the full numbers here. Do not have him pulled in yet. Damian Harris, I think, felt like he was behind Latavius Murray in parts, certainly behind James Cook, but was getting some weird 3rd and long plays, which do not seem like a Damian Harris strength. I'm just going to kind of put him safely in the middle here. Needs to show more. Absolutely. DeAndre Swift. Oh boy, that guy got buried, huh? 3 intended touches in that game. Didn't do anything with him. Didn't look shifty with him. 2 targets. Nothing in the red zone. I'll say that he's still an okay player, but this is a pretty bad spot. DeAndre Swift, for right now, has got to go down much lower. David Montgomery. David Montgomery had a nice start for himself, but still the numbers basically average. Negative 0.01 EPA per rush, 0 EPA per pass. 21 touches, though. 4 touches in the red zone or 4 rushes in the red zone. That bodes well. Does feel like that's maybe not the stickiest workload because of how good Jahmyr Gibbs looked. If you compare these two guys, pure eyeball test, David Montgomery looks like every running back. Jahmyr Gibbs looks like a special running back. So I'm going to put him... The volume, I think, puts him ahead of Dillon, ahead of Robinson, and he's just like an average guy. Yeah, I'll put him in here. So not quite as good of a spot as Alexander Madison. Honestly, yeah, the fluidity, the potential Jahmyr Gibbs taking a role, I think puts him behind Madison in terms of the spot. And I do think he's not as good of a player as Bijan. Probably as good of a player as Madison, though. So we can move them closer together. Looking at the Spags, I think you're being slightly too harsh on Gibson. I'm not being harsh enough. I think Gibson, I'm going to move him down further. He's now as far as you could possibly go down on this chart, and I stand by it. He's fucking nothing. He was good 3 years ago in a couple games, and everybody since then has been like, this Antonio Gibson guy, people are just undervaluing him, and then every year he sucks. Every year he does nothing. Every year he doesn't produce even any ceiling games. I don't see it at all. Derrick Henry lost a lot of work to Tyjae Spears, like a lot of work to Tyjae Spears. He was a negative 0.01 EPA per rush. He was actually pretty good catching the ball again, 0.8 EPA per target, but only 18 intended touches. And again, a lot of those third down routes going to Tyjae Spears. The red zone work was also a little bit less than for Derrick Henry, just 3 red zone touches. Tennessee was bad in that game, though, so I can't fully blame him for that. I think still a good spot for Derrick Henry, though. And he's still a better player than average. So I'm going to put him slightly above the middle line here, and then a little bit higher on the great spot chart. But Tyjae taking that work away, I think makes it tough for Henry, because we saw last year that Tennessee did want to use Dontrell Hilliard on some of those plays. This year, they're aggressively using Tyjae Spears for him. That worries me a little bit for Derrick Henry, but you can make the case that I'm a little bit light on him here. I can move him up a bit closer here because he's not in a worse spot than AJ Dillon, I don't think. Yeah, that's not fair. But I don't know that he's quite in a David Montgomery or Alexander Madison spot either. I'm going to have a little bit of overlap here. And let's move Dillon slightly back. I think Henry should be like in this range, but I don't want to overlap these two guys fully. All right, there we go. He's like Brian Robinson, but better. But Tyjae's better than Gibson. I think that kind of comes out in the wash. All right. God, there's so many running backs on this list. Oh, here's another guy that can join Antonio Gibson. Deuce Vaughn. Sorry about that one. A-Chain didn't play. We'll keep him off the list. Elijah Mitchell didn't do anything. Isaiah Pacheco. Let's look at his numbers because I do think these could be interesting. Also, shout out to all you guys strapping in here. I didn't know how long these rankings were going to take, and apparently they're going to take even longer than I thought. So keep hanging here. We're going to keep going. I'm going to get through every player come hell or high water. Negative 0.2 EPA per rush for Isaiah Pacheco, 0.7 EPA per target for him, 12 intended touches coming back from the labrum stuff where he wasn't used a lot in the preseason. That's pretty tough. Running good routes, though. I think that all bodes well. Not great red zone work for Pacheco. I think Pacheco's kind of in the middle of everything here. He is like our center square where the usage is like not bell cow back, kind of number 2 backy. But he's just a running back in a committee like every running back in football is going to be for the most part. So I think that's it. We want a Roshan take. Well, you got to wait till we get to R. We got a lot of guys to get to. But Roshan was all garbage time, so that's a little bit tough. Jahmyr Gibbs. Let's look at these numbers. Jahmyr. 0.7 EPA per pass, negative 0.01 EPA per rush. So basically the same rush production as Montgomery did with less touches, 9 touches in that game. I've said it before. I think that my thesis for the Lions backfield is similar for my thesis for a lot of the backfields. You're going to see Montgomery's touches come down. You're going to see Jahmyr Gibbs' touches come up a little bit. That's going to put both these guys as like 15-ish touch range, maybe closer to 12-ish for Gibbs. But Gibbs had so much juice in that game. I like Gibbs. Gibbs avoided tackle rate, 100% avoided tackle rate on run plays. On rush plays, he did not break a tackle on the pass plays, So Gibbs, to me, I think is a good player. The spot, though, is not great yet. I'm going to put him as better than Pacheco, but a worse spot. I think feels about right. Jamal Williams. Oof, Jamal Williams, this is not going to look good, right? 20 intended touches, looks good. Negative 0.2 EPA per rush, negative 0.3 EPA per pass. He stinks. This is part of the thesis for Kendre Miller was just that Jamal Williams is not good, but he's going to get all the work, it seems like, until Kamara comes back or Miller can prove he's healthy and earn some of that workload. Not a bad spot. He's worse than Robinson. So I think here's where he is. Closer to a mid player, but the volume work there is right in line. Honestly, right in line with Brian Robinson. Jamal had 3 red zone rushes, no red zone targets. Jamal could have had a Detroit Lions style game. He just didn't get there. Gibbs by low. if you can get him, I would buy him. Absolutely. If people want to get rid of him right now, I think that workload does even out a little bit. Still think Montgomery's clearly the guy who's going to get most of the traditional running back touches, but again, 100% avoided tackle rate on 7 rushes. Like, it basically means that he avoided 7 tackles, touching the ball 7 times. That's pretty good. All right. Let's see. James Conner. Oh boy. Poor Davis Peng. Poor Davis Peng with the start for James Conner and for Michael Thomas. 19 intended touches for James Conner, negative 0.06 EPA per rush, negative 0.3 EPA per target. Didn't get any red zone work in the run game, got 1 red zone target. This offense is going to be bad. Conner might get the volume, but honestly, they can call it the dogs in him at any time. I think he's like an average player. I think the spot kind of stinks. I'm going to put him a little bit below average, and the volume here, he's in Damian Harris territory because it's just not good volume. So Damian Harris, bad volume on a good team. James Conner, good volume on a bad team. That's how that works. Okay. Turns out Conner is old and his offense stinks. Who could have guessed? Yeah, there were no signs of that at all. Everybody was talking about how great these guys looked. James Cook, pretty good usage, getting involved in the pass game at 4 catches. Not had 1 target as well. That could have been a deeper target downfield that paid off and got him in the end zone. I think James Cook is in a nice spot. I don't think he's a great player yet. Of course, I don't have the EPA numbers for him because it is from Monday Night Football. I'm going to put him in this middle range. I think he's A.J. Dillon tier, but not quite as much volume. James Cook, I think, certainly going to get better for him in terms of the production. Who else? James, I don't think we need to raid. James Robinson can join the Deuce Vaughn, Antonio Gibson tier. J.K. Dobbins, what could have been? J.K. Dobbins, just for 1 week, it's the ceremonial spot on top here. What were Dobbins' numbers? Dobbins hurts a lot, man, because he was a high portfolio guy for me in best ball. Then seeing the work that went to both him and Justice Hill later on. Dobbins, though, actually negative 0.1 EPA per rush, 0.1 EPA per target. Got 11 intended touches in that game before tearing his Achilles. 8 rushes. I'm going to keep J.K. Dobbins here for ceremony. Right here. Rest in peace to J.K. Dobbins. But he wasn't that great, honestly. But it does make me really sad. I thought this was the year for Dobbins, and I think that was starting to bear out. Again, 11 intended touches in about a half of football. I think that all the other ones that would have gone to Justice Hill would have gone to him. He had 1 red zone rush, 1 5-yard rush, 1 red zone target. Out of pure respect, rip Dobbins. He goes up top here. Never forget the day that we lost J.K. Dobbins. Javonte Williams. Javonte, negative 0.04 EPA per rush, negative 0.6 EPA per pass, 15% avoided tackle rate on the run plays. 6 targets, though, is pretty good for Javonte. The red zone work was not great. 1 red zone rush that was inside the 5-yard line as well. Think the spot could get better for Javonte, but I'm encouraged by the usage. Think he also doesn't look great yet, but I think still better than Brian Robinson and A.J. Dillon. Javonte goes firmly in the middle here. And then just out of curiosity, Samaje Perine will try to rank at the same time. Samaje, negative 0.02 EPA per rush, 0.6 EPA per pass, 12 intended touches. About 4 of them, it looks like, were targets. That checks out. 1 red zone rush. So Samaje, is he on this list? Hopefully will be. There are duplicates on this list. Good to know. So there actually aren't as many guys left to rank as it looks like. So that bodes well. Samaje's not on the list, but Samaje, if I had to rank him, honestly, I'd put him a little bit behind Javonte in terms of the spot, a little bit behind him in terms of the talent. I think I'd put Samaje like right in A.J. Dillon territory. Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor is proxy for all the Colts running backs. Deion Jackson was awful in that game. I think we need to talk about that briefly because he's going to get another chance here, I guess, unless Zach Moss is back in week 2, which is a possibility. But Deion Jackson, negative 0.7 EPA per rush, negative 1.3 EPA per target. And that's like still small sample size relative to the course of an entire season. But for 1 game, he had 19 intended touches, 6 intended targets, and he was that bad. He also didn't avoid a single tackle. In the run game, had a 40% avoided tackle rate when catching a pass. So that's okay. But Jonathan Taylor as a proxy for Deion Jackson, mid player in a pretty good spot. So there's Deion Jackson / whoever starts at running back for the Colts. I think they are in a pretty good spot with the AR stuff, with the targets as well. Was shocked to see that many running back targets for AR, given that historically running QBs do generate less pass volume for their running backs. But I think still just not great for Deion Jackson in that spot. Joe Mixon. When Fournette and Hunt. I guess Hunt's still a possibility. They did bring him in at one point. Fournette, though, I don't think Fournette's going anywhere, to be honest. Unless, well, who would have to get hurt for Fournette, I think, at this point? I think it's more likely that the Colts would go to Hunt because they did bring him in before, and I don't think they ever brought in Fournette. Joe Mixon, negative 0.3 EPA per rush, negative 0.2 EPA per target, not good. 18 targets, also not great. Did give up a good amount of work to Travion Williams and a little bit to Chris Evans. Avoiding tackles at a 23% rate, actually pretty good for Joe Mixon, but no red zone work for Mixon, I guess because the Bengals didn't really get into the red zone much. If we assume that the Bengals are going to rebound, and I think they will, it's a better spot than that week one obviously looked. But I do think Mixon is pretty mid. That was sort of the thesis of Chase Brown as well as Travion Williams and Chris Evans, that Mixon seemed like he was almost not on the team, and then he revised his contract and does get on the team. But I think that Mixon has got to go in the lower end here. I don't think Mixon is that great. Josh Jacobs. Not the best start for him. Negative 0.1 EPA per rush, 0.03 EPA per target. 22 intended touches looks pretty good. Avoided tackles at a 32% rate, which should actually be better than he did last year. 3 targets in that game. Avoided tackles well in the targets. I think Josh Jacobs has a nice workload. Josh Jacobs, good player, good workload. Maybe a little bit due for regression in terms of how he performs per run play. But I think he's in this Eckler-McCaffrey tier, but a little bit behind them. So I'll put him overlapping with Austin Eckler here, but behind McCaffrey and, of course, our ceremonial J.K. Dobbins. Ravens brought up Melvin Gordon, was hoping Fournette would go there. I think the guy to watch there is still Keaton Mitchell, but I think really Gus Edwards for week 2, he's going to be more involved. Gus Edwards, I think, just like a safety blankie who hopefully can win over the new offensive coordinator there, Todd Monken. But I think, to me, Gus Edwards getting more involved, Justice Hill playing poor man's J.K. Dobbins, and then one of Gordon and Mitchell working in, I think, is in play. Probably Gordon to start, but I think Mitchell kind of takes that role at some point, assuming that he does actually get on the active roster. Let's see. Kendre Miller, nothing for him. Kenneth Walker, 0.04 EPA per rush. That's actually a pretty big improvement for him compared to how he performed last year, where he, much like Dameon Pierce, was actually pretty bad in these metrics that show efficiency. Negative 0.5 EPA per target, though. Still think he is alive to lose that role to a guy like Zach Charbonnet in the pass game. But honestly, things look okay. Kenneth Walker didn't avoid any tackles, but still had 12 rushes there, against 17 intended touches, 1 red zone rush, 1 red zone target for Walker. That's pretty good. I think still some risk, but he looked okay. It's an okay spot. I think we're in James Cook tier for Kenneth Walker. That works. All right. Who else do we have left on this list? Khalil Herbert. Khalil, how did he do? So this is one weird one for the Bears, where a lot of Roschon's work came later in that game after they had used a lot of Khalil Herbert and Deonta Foreman early on. Khalil Herbert, negative 0.2 EPA per rush, 0.3 EPA per target, so that's okay. 14 intended touches overall. 9 of them are rushes. 5 of them were targets. Didn't avoid any tackles in the pass game or the run game. That's I would like to see at least 1 avoided tackle for Herbert. I think he's mid. I mean, I think he's kind of a mid player, and the spot is a little bit risky. I'm going to put him closer to Pacheco range for now. Let's put him firmly in Pacheco territory. Think Roschon is going to earn that full pass game role at some point. I think Roschon is going to come for the lead back role at some point. For right now, I think that's where Khalil Herbert goes. We don't care about Michael Carter, so let's look at Miles Sanders. Negative 0.3 EPA per rush. That is going to be a steep fall off from the efficiency he had last year as an Eagle. 23 rushes overall in that game, or 23 intended touches, 0.2 EPA per target. So okay in the pass game. The one thing that people critiqued Miles Sanders for, he did look okay in the pass game. Didn't avoid any tackles in that game. You would love to see some shiftiness. Got 2 red zone touches. Bell cow role plus shitty offense. I think he just goes in this morass of guys. Not quite Derrick Henry. Honestly, he should probably be closer to Javonte in terms of the skill. More volume than Javonte. Not quite as good as Derrick Henry. Better than Brian Robinson. Better than Jamal Williams. I think that's where Miles Sanders can safely go. Najee Harris. Now we're into the fun ones. How did Najee do? Oh, shit. Najee, positive EPA per rush, 0.1 EPA per rush for Najee, negative 0.5 EPA per pass, though. You do not want to give him any passes. Najee avoided 33% of the tackles. He only had 6 runs in that game, but did avoid some tackles, 2 targets in that one, 1 red zone rush, tough defense. Got to kind of give Najee some credit. It's not a great spot though, because that's looking like a pure timeshare with Jaylen Warren. This is honestly me giving Najee credit. He's in the middle. He's in Pacheco and Herbert territory. That's really good for Najee. Not good for a normal human being. Not good for a running back that we expect, like some people want Najee to be. But I think we can accept that for Najee. I think that's okay. Most underrated, overrated guy in the league. It's true. And Najee's still single. Good to know. Good. Shocker to hear that. And nobody wants to pick up old Najee. But honestly, I am shocked that he contributed positive metrics in anything. So kudos to Najee for that. Nick Chubb. Oh, Nick Chubb is a contender for J.K. Dobbins territory. 0.1 EPA per rush, 0.2 EPA per target, 22 intended touches in that game, 4 targets in that game as well. There was a lot of work for Jerome Ford, and Jerome Ford was actively bad. They get a negative 0.8 EPA per rush. Nick Chubb, the same situation, looked a lot better. Nick Chubb didn't get great goal line work in that one, just 2 red zone rushes. But again, shifty overall, though he only had a 17% avoided tackle rate in that game. Still, it's something. At least he avoided some tackles. Nick Chubb, I think, is low-key in this tier. I think should maybe be closer to Josh Jacobs than McCaffrey and Eckler. A little better than Jacob. No, he's pretty much even with Jacobs. We'll put him even with Jacobs, but a slightly less good spot, I think. Nick Chubb's single. I'm surprised by that. I guess when you're in Cleveland and you got your pick of all the fine babes in Cleveland, hard to expect you to run away from that one. Rachaad White. Rachaad White is not going to be good, huh? Rachaad White is going to go on the bad side of things. Negative 0.4 EPA per rush, negative 0.2 EPA per target. 19 intended touches is pretty good. Didn't avoid 6% avoided tackle rate. Eek. Didn't avoid a tackle in the pass game. 2 red zone rushes for Rachaad White. I think Rachaad has got to be mid, but in a good spot and a better spot than the Colts running backs, I think. But not quite as good of a spot as Jamal Williams, where there's no question about who's the lead back there right now. What? What are you talking about? I didn't spell anything. I didn't make these things. I don't know what you're talking about. Rashad Penny doesn't get a vote. Ramondre, I'm actually curious to see Ramondre's numbers, and you guys hopefully will be too, because Ramondre, I know, very popular this offseason, was less popular for me, and for good reason. It looks like negative 0.3 EPA per rush. Did have 0.4 EPA per target though, so that's actually pretty good. 18 intended touches on 58 snaps. Pretty good snap count for Ramondre. 6 targets on 6 catches, or 6 catches on 6 targets rather. 2 red zone rushes for Ramondre. Good volume, not great efficiency for Ramondre to start. And you do still have Zeke. What did Zeke do? Ezekiel Elliott. Zeke had 14 touches, was better running the ball. Actually had a positive EPA running the ball than Zeke. 0.08 EPA per rush for him. Negative 1.5 EPA per target for Zeke. But yeah, honestly, Zeke had a nice workload. 14 intended touches for Zeke is not bad. Anyway, Ramondre, to me, I think it's a good spot in terms of volume. I do think he's not great. I think he's Miles Sanders tier for me. Look at my map. It says Chubb. It says, oh, Chubb Cobbs. I see what you're saying. Okay. That was a stretch, OG1 Kenobi. I got to tell you, appreciate you. That really befuddled my brain. Roshan's numbers. Let's look at Roshan. Did he live up to the hype that I bestowed upon him as a guy who carried me through best ball teams? Roshan, 0.3 EPA per rush, 0.1 EPA per pass, 12 intended touches. A lot of them came in garbage time, so I wouldn't crown Roshan yet. But 7 intended targets, avoided tackles, 17% of those, and he was a 33% avoided tackle rate when catching a pass in college. 2 red zone rushes, which were in the 5-yard line. Did get a TD on that one. Also got 2 red zone targets. Roshan's low-key a beast. I don't think it's a great spot for him yet. He's got to overtake Herbert, but the potential's there for him. I guess it depends on how much this garbage time converts to real time. I'm going to put him closer to a superior player and closer to a great spot, because I think the great spot part of it is that he's going to win this job at some point, and he's going to look pretty good for it. If I trade Jacobs for Ayuk, is that OW? Depends how your receivers are. If you really need a receiver, yes, and you're okay at running back, but he is a bell cow back in season long, so I don't For season long, I probably would keep Jacobs. Ayuk's great. Like Ayuk fits all the criteria stuff I talk about, but just for season long, I think you probably want your anchor. So if you have another like anchor back, then you could trade Jacobs for Ayuk. But if you don't, I probably wouldn't. All right, who else do we have left? Saquon. Oh, Saquon. I can't wait for this one. This is going to be bad, which I love because I hate Saquon. Negative 0.03 EPA for rush for Saquon, negative 0.44 EPA per target for Saquon. So basically that was where he was last year. He's fucking average. That's what he is. People don't want to hear it. He's average. 16 intended touches in this game. 12 of them were rushes. 4 of them were targets. Did avoid tackles on the pass plays. 33% avoided tackle right there. Didn't avoid a single tackle in the run game. That's not great. The red zone work was not there for him in this game because the Giants were terrible. Saquon, I think, is in a good spot. Not a great one yet, but he's basically Deion Jackson. Saquon Barkley right next to Jonathan Taylor as Deion Jackson, as two guys who he's better than Deion Jackson. That's unfair. Deion was actively negative. Saquon, Cam Akers tier, but less work. I'll put him ahead of Cam, barely. Saquon should be lower than Gibson. I can't go that far. But yes, it's fucking Alpha can attest. I have been bashing the shit out of Saquon for literally a year, I think, at this point, but definitely all off season. And I'm pleased with the results thus far. Tank Bigsby. Tank's numbers have to be pretty bad, I think. Tank he got that touchdown, but boy, did not show a lot. Negative 0.08 EPA per rush. That's like not great. Again, just basically where Saquon was. Negative 6.9 EPA per target. So he only got 1 target in that game, but cost the team a touchdown worth of expected points on that one target. So it's going to get better for Tank. Positive regression coming. That said, ATN had more of the workload. ATN looked pretty proficient in all the parts of it, but still 8 intended touches for Tank is not bad. I think I thought he was a mid player and I gave him some grace because everybody told me Auburn sucked and it might be why he wasn't that good in the college numbers that I looked at. But I think he's closer to a mid player and it's not quite a great spot. I think he's kind of a little bit Dalvin Cook, not quite as good of a spot as Dalvin. Yeah, I think this works. Tank Bigsby behind Dalvin, maybe a little bit better. All right. We got Tony Pollard. Oh boy, we still have some key guys here, huh? Tony Pollard. I think this is going to be one you guys are going to be happy to hear if you're a Tony Pollard fan. 0.13 EPA per rush, 0.3 EPA per target, 17 intended touches, so not quite a full bell cow roll, but as close as we're going to get. Was also not avoiding tackles that well, didn't avoid a tackle in the pass game or the run game, but still, so the red zone workload for Tony Pollard was fucking insane. 7 red zone rushes, 4 of which were inside the 5-yard line. He converted 2 of those into touchdowns. 1 red zone target for him as well. So 8 intended red zone targets for Tony Pollard. The volume is not quite as high as McCaffrey and Eckler, but he was analytically a little better than those guys. So I'm actually going to put him right next to McCaffrey in terms of the superior player part. Great spot. I don't think the spot is necessarily as good because he's not going to have as much volume as McCaffrey, but you cannot ignore that red zone work. Tony Pollard, I still think tough for him to live up to a season of this workload, but that is, you are a Tony Pollard buyer. If you're somebody that was drafting him everywhere, I would still worry about the wide receivers you passed up in that range. But like Tony Pollard is in line, I think, to be a easy top 5 running back if this keeps up. So Tony Pollard, I think one of the running backs that we can say did his job and did it well. Travis Etienne, mid, negative 0.05 EPA per rush, negative 0.01 EPA per target. Did get 23 intended touches, 18 of which were run plays, 5 targets though. The 5 targets is huge because he was not trusted in pass protection last year, and that really hurt Travis Etienne. So Etienne, I think, still not a great player. I think he's mid, but the spot is better than a lot of these guys. I'm going to put him, I think, Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs range, I think, is where Travis Etienne goes. Maybe a little bit behind these guys. So ahead of Derrick Henry is where I would put him. And I think he's a better player than Ramondre. So that's where that shakes out in terms of those rankings. Tajay, where did Tajay do? Let's see. Tajay, 0.5 EPA per rush, negative 0.7 EPA per target. That's not great. 7 intended touches, so the workload also not great. But he was out there running routes, did avoid tackles at a 33% clip. That all bodes well. Tajay is going to have better days, but this is not a good spot for him yet. I think he's a superior player. I think he's Jahmyr Gibbsy. A little bit less work than Gibbs. So yeah, Spears right here. I think that works. Last running back on the board that actually matters to the ecosystem. Zach Charbonnet, 3 intended touches in this game. He's not there. Did have 0.01 EPA per rush. You got to see more from Charbonnet. The jury's out. I'm going to put him. Yeah, I'm going to put him here. I think he's a better player than some of these guys. There we go. SPAGS rankings for running backs. All right. Who's ready? Who's ready for the marathon to continue? SPAGS rankings for receivers. Let's go. Let me switch the sheet here. Is anybody going to be mad if I skip tight end this week? I feel like I have to do it for the sake of completion, but oh boy. All right. AJ Brown, right? Let's start there. Let me alphabetize this list. Shouts to the chat. Keep on rocking. We're ready. Go. 250 receivers. I don't care. I guess I said I'm going to do it, and we're going to do it. Let's sort this, though, alphabetically to make it easier. I'm going to take a big swig of water for myself. We're going to get there. AJ Brown for week 1. 0.05 EPA per pass. 10 intended touches in that game, 7 of which were targets. Wait, is that? Oh, yeah, that's confusing to me. Oh, 7 catches. Okay, never mind. I misread my sheet. 10 intended touches, so that's 10 targets, 7 catches on those. EPA-wise, 0.05 EPA per target. Not the A.J. Brown start you want to see, but again, they played New England. New England is tough. A.J. Brown, for me, still a good player. The spot, still good as well. I'm going to put him in that McCaffrey equivalent range to start it off here. Bad start for Amari Cooper, but I wonder if the advanced analytics are going to make it look as bad as I thought it was. Amari. Yeah, Amari, a 0 EPA per target on 7 intended targets. Only caught 3 of them. Had 1 deep target. Also, A.J. Brown had 2 deep targets, so I think that does kind of lead to some hope there for him to have better days. Amari, though, didn't show much. Still think it's a good spot for him, but not quite an A.J. Brown spot. And I do think he's a better player than people realize. So I'm actually going to put him level with A.J. Brown, but I'm going to put the spot a little bit behind A.J. Brown, if that makes sense. Perspective, you could be doing 8 hours of DK drafts again. That's true. That is true. When Hunter Henry leads all tight ends in fantasy points, you could skip the position. Thank you for the grace there. I'm curious to see how the tight ends look, so I'm still probably going to do it because that's the kind of sick person that I am. Amon-Ra St. Brown, a guy that I planted some flags on this offseason, would like this to look good, and it does. 0.3 EPA per pass, 9 intended touches, caught 6 of them. Could have been better. There was that one play you might have seen from Ben Solak at the Ringer where basically Amon-Ra was running wide open and Jared Goff just didn't see him. Could have been a really good day for Amon-Ra, but I think he is a great player. I think the spot's going to look even better. For me, guys, for SPAGs and the SPAGs rankings, I think Amon-Ra is above A.J. Brown. So I think he's a better player. I think the spot's roughly equivalent, but you're just going to get more week-to-week production from Amon-Ra. So I'm actually going to put him higher than A.J. Brown and a little bit more to the right as well. We don't have in-depth analysis on the tight ends. All right. Thank you. The tightest ends, excuse me. All right. How many receivers? Oh, there's actually not a lot of receivers. Good. That bodes well for me. All right. Brandon Cooks, 0.23 EPA per target, 4 intended touches in that game. So he looked good with them. None of them were deep shots, I guess, which surprises me. That doesn't make sense, right? He must have had 1 deep target, but it's not showing up on my sheet. Still not great work for Cooks. The work is the main thing you want to see from him, though. That wasn't a game where obviously they didn't have to press the ball downfield much. They were safely in charge that entire game. Cooks, I think, is in a bad spot. I think it's not a great spot for him where he's going to get a ton of volume. That said, he did play pretty well with the volume he got. I think he can have upside. So I'm going to put him, he's not quite Cooper, not quite Amon-Ra or AJ. There we go. All right, Brandon Ayuk. This is one that I'm actually curious to see. Holy shit. Brandon Ayuk, 1.7 EPA per target on 8 targets. He caught all 8. He did everything. He had a 38% avoided tackle rate on those 8 targets. He also had 2 red zone targets and caught 2 of them. In terms of just the pure numbers, I think Tyreek is going to stand out more. This was a gangbusters performance for Brandon Ayuk. And also, this is why I am obsessed with the EPA numbers. Because you know why? Brandon Ayuk was like good in fantasy last year. He was really good in some of my teams. I think it was on my finalist team as well and put up a usable week when Justin Jefferson did nothing in BBM3. That said, like, he wasn't a guy that you're like, oh, Brandon Ayuk, I gotta go out of my way to get him. But because of the fact that he was adding points last year, now he's even better and went through 1 week. These are like ungodly numbers. And I know there's been a lot of hype about him. Debo said you can't cover this guy in a phone booth. Like, and that's a fellow receiver on the same team. They hype each other up, but like, that's a specific way of talking about how a guy can't be covered. Ayuk is really good. It's just, is he going to get the volume? Like 8 intended touches is not 10. And then in games too, where let's say the Steelers don't hang around as much as they did in that first half, like they were getting beaten, but they did kind of hang around with a late TD, I believe. Like Brandon Ayuk, I think is potentially going to have some down weeks, but in terms of the talent, it's hard for me to ignore. I think the spot's a little bit worse than Amon-Ra and AJ, but I think he's more talented. I think Ayuk is really fucking good, man. That like Ayuk has been so slept on. Ayuk, excuse me. I know people hate when I pronounce it Ayuk. Ayuk is really good. Ayuk is really good, and there were signs that he was going to be really good, and now we're seeing it. So I'm not going to victory lap that because it wasn't like I was coming on every stream wearing Brandon Ayuk jerseys. But this is like why I look at the numbers I look at. This is why I obsess with the numbers I look at, because they pay off like that. Calvin Ridley, I think, might be the inverse, but let's see. Calvin Ridley. Yep. No, it's Calvin Austin. Calvin Ridley. So this is interesting. So 0.4 EPA per target. So actually pretty good. He was not quite Brandon Ayuk, who 4x that. 0.4 EPA per target, 11 intended touches, caught 8 of them, avoided tackles at a 13% clip. So he's not necessarily doing a whole lot after the catch, but still 1 deep target in that game, caught that for 23 intended air yards, had a 1.3 EPA on the deep throws. Ridley's back. I mean, it's hard to look at these numbers. 1 game, obviously 2 red zone targets for him. Ridley's back, and that's the pass game offense for the Jags. So, fuck, I guess he's in this tier. He's got to be ahead of Amari at this point. I think he's not quite as good as these guys, not quite as great of a spot as these guys. I don't expect it to be quite as sticky as Amon-Ra and AJ Brown, but that's a really good first showing for Calvin Ridley. So hopefully that pays off throughout the season. We'll see. CeeDee Lamb. Wow. CeeDee Lamb, 1.3 EPA per target. That's crazy. He only caught 4 though, but he made them count. 25% avoided tackle rate on those plays. So he really outperformed. It's just bad volume, but it was a game where they were in control. I worry about the volume. This has been the whole thing that I've said this entire offseason, was that it's a regressive move to have had Brian Schottenheimer as the OC going from Kellen Moore and have Mike McCarthy calling plays. So I don't think this is as good of a spot. I do think that he clearly numerically looks better than Amari Cooper. I think that puts them even spot for CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. CeeDee's the better player though. All right. Whew, that's a lot. Chase Claypool. I think we might find our Antonio Gibson here with Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool, negative 0.9. Oh boy. Negative 0.9 EPA per target. He also only got 2 targets. Yup. Chase Claypool's the Antonio Gibson. Also, if you guys, hold on, give me 1 second here because I have to give my CTO for probably our auth code for our thing. Hold on. All right. Might have to do this again. I apologize. Unfortunately, this is what happens when you're a powerful business owner losing money by the day and you need to set up Stripe so people can actually pay you money for your product. But go check it out at probably.com. Chris Godwin, let's do it. Chris, where are you? Wow. Chris Godwin, 0.74 EPA per target, only 6 targets. That's really good. Not deep targets, though. Did get 1 red zone target. I'm shocked to see that EPA number for Chris Godwin, but running out of the slot, I guess it makes some sense. Man, I'm blown away by that one. I don't think it's a great spot, but he played well. I'm going to put him behind Amari and CeeDee Lamb, but that's shocking to me. Chris Godwin is not that kind of guy, I think, but that's a very good sign for him. I think the Bucs, again, to me, if you're going to pick one team, that's the Commanders from last year. I think that's the one that's Commanders from last year. So that's how I feel about it. But if this keeps up, might be a good year for Chris Godwin. So that's one that immediately I will say, I'm surprised it went that well for him. Chris Olave, 0.6 EPA per target, got 10 targets, caught 8 of them. Didn't avoid any tackles, but 220-plus yard throws on those plays overall. Those 2 deep throws as well contributed 81 intended air yards to him, and he dropped them, I think, or he dropped one of them. No, he dropped both. Didn't catch both. One of them was a catchable ball, so he had a negative 1.3. So Chris Olave actually has a ceiling that he's got yet to hit. Olave had a great game in week 1. It can get better for him. 10 targets, man, it's pretty crazy. He's low-key in this range. He is not quite Calvin Ridley, not quite Amon-Ra AJ. Potential to move into that range this year, though. This Olave, he's not really a buy low because he's probably appropriately valued. Olave, though, might break out this year. That is a really good start. And Tennessee sucks against the deep ball, but he didn't capitalize. Like this production didn't come from deep passes. So I think Olave that's shocking. That's really good. The Chris's, good for the Chris's. Bad for this one, though. Christian Kirk, negative 0.4 EPA per target, only had 3 targets, caught 1 of them. Low ADOT, it looks like, as well. Yeah, no, not a great ADOT at 7 air yards per target. Christian Kirk off to a really bad start. I don't think he's this bad for real, but I think relative to week 1 metrics, he is in Chase Claypool town. That's a real, if you are invested in Christian Kirk, it's going to level out a little bit, but the fact that he's not running in those 2 wide receiver sets, the fact that Calvin Ridley is clearly worlds better, Zay Jones might also be better, I would be incredibly worried about Christian Kirk. I know Mike Leone said as much on Twitter as one of the preeminent Christian Kirk fans, of course, the brilliant data guy over at ETR, but that's a really bad start for Christian Kirk. Christian Watson didn't play this week. But yeah, he should go somewhere around here, right? I guess I have to put him in now that I grabbed him. Christian Watson, here, let's keep it all tentative right now. He is a superior player. We don't know about the spot yet. So here we go. He can at least be Chris Godwin. I think that's fine. Yeah, Kirk did get outsnapped by Zay. We knew that was going to happen, so it's not a surprise. Cooper Kupp will leave out, though. I don't think Puka's here. Yeah, Puka's not on this list. Neither is Tutu Atwell. So let's use Cooper Kupp as the proxy for these 2 guys. Puka Nacua, his numbers. 0.4 EPA per target, 15 targets in that game, caught 10 of them. Also got 2 deep targets in that game, caught 1 of them. 52 air yards. That looks really good. 1 red zone target for Puka. Tutu Atwell. 0.94 EPA per target on 8 targets, caught 6 of them. 2 of them were deep targets, caught both of them. 2.2 EPA on deep targets. This is a stellar combined role. Obviously, Cooper Kupp now, if he comes back and these guys do anything approximating that again next week, Cooper Kupp's not going to have the same opportunity, I think. But if you roll those 2 guys' opportunities into one, like Cooper Kupp is basically in this Ridley range, I would say. It's a great spot. We'll see how the talent goes, but these guys also performed well. I mean, I think this is where he goes. I think this is where Puka and Atua Atkua comes together. Puktu Atkua is going to be in this spot here. That is a tremendous opportunity for him. Also, the Rams, I think if I were to pick a second team that could be this year's week 1 commanders, it's the Bucs. And I think maybe it's the Rams, but they were so good that you can't ignore it for this 1 week at the very least. Van Jefferson is dog shit too. That's true. And yes, Puka needs to score, but he's still got a red zone target, so I can't be mad about that. Love looked good, which should be good for Watson. I agree. I think Watson, again, I'm putting him in this middle spot just tentatively, but I think he's the guy that rises with the tide if Jordan Love is actually pretty good. Courtland Sutton, all the sexy wide receiver names we got to talk about here. Courtland Sutton, actually pretty good. 0.4 EPA per target, 5 targets, caught 4 of them. Not any deep targets, so okay. Yeah, I mean, like a good in advanced analytics, the EPA numbers look good for Sutton. Not a lot of volume. I think he belongs in this Watson range. The Watson didn't play a week. Courtland Sutton playing is roughly as valuable as Christian Watson in theory. I think that checks out, so we'll put Sutton there. Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney might actually grade out pretty well because he did have that 1 nice catch. No, Darnell Mooney still negative 0.5 EPA per target, 7 targets, 4 catches. The catchable ball rate on those. Oh, fuck. I don't have the catchable ball rate. But he did catch 2 deep targets over there. So that's pretty good. 2 deep throws, 2 deep targets. Both of them are catchable balls, 1.6 EPA on deep throws. So Mooney is going to benefit, it seems like, from DJ Moore drawing attention in, though Moore obviously didn't do anything, so hard to say. But not a bad start for Mooney in terms of the spot. I don't expect it to hold to the same extent as some of these other ones. So I'm going to put I'm going to put Mooney here. Could do more with it. Was great on deep balls. I think the great on deep balls thing is what matters a lot here. Let's put him firmly on the middle axis. I think that works. Davante Adams. All right, Davante. Tough game for Davante. A lot of the attention, of course, going his way defensively. Jacoby Myers benefits as a result, but still 0.64 EPA per target for Davante. 9 targets in this game. Didn't avoid any tackles when he was targeted, but, he's old. He's basically a statue at this point. DeAndre Hopkins-esque is Davante. One 20-yard throw. One red zone target as well. Davante, I think we know what he is. Good spot. Good player. He goes in this range as well, along with our Ridleys, our A.J. Browns, our Amon-Ra St. Browns. And I'm just going to try to give these guys a little more space here so that we can see them. Cup. There we go. Ridley gets some moves up just because I want people to be able to see that he's there. Stafford is good against Hawks, week cover 2, but he'll suffer this week. Potentially. All right, other guys at receiver. DeAndre Hopkins, how did he do? I'm actually curious about this one because that game was very ugly. DeAndre, so basically just average. My bad, actually. Really bad. Really bad for DeAndre. Negative 0.4 EPA per target. Caught 13 targets, or had 13 targets, caught 7 of them. 49 snaps in that game. A lot of air yards, though. 140 air yards. 1 deep target. And didn't catch it. And he apparently should have caught it. 2 red zone targets. Pretty good role for DeAndre, but the best days are behind him. Honestly, that role's looking pretty solid. What is the ADOT on these? 10.6 ADOT on his plays as well. That's pretty good. Honestly, good spot for DeAndre, but I think he's mostly washed. So that's how I'm feeling about DeAndre. Debo. See how Debo looks. Debo, 0.2 EPA per target, 9 targets in that game, caught 7 of them. Also had 2 rushes in that game. Didn't do a whole lot with that. Debo's okay. I mean, just having, again, 9 attended touches is pretty noteworthy, though AU clearly going to be the higher volatility, higher upside player at receiver. I think Debo's an okay player, maybe better than okay. I think he's Chris Godwin range right now. Debo right here feels about right to me. He's not in this alpha tier here by any stretch, but I think he's pretty good. D-Hop at 13 targets and 10. He only completed, 69 to 34 passes. That's true. I have a lobby and a 3 wide receiver, 1 flex. Someone just offered me Garrett. What? I don't fucking care. Sorry, Kanan. If you're new here, I appreciate you, but I don't think you're going to stick around. So I'm not going to deal with it. Devontae Smith. There we go. Aaron got Kanan. Good. I lost interest once that went longer than 1 sentence. Devontae Smith, negative 0.23 EPA per target, 10 targets in that game, 2 deep targets, 1 red zone target, which was inside the 5-yard line for him. Nice role for Devontae, not quite the A.J. Brown role. Devontae's not in this tier. I think he's closer to the Debo tier, but better, but maybe less of a role than Godwin and Debo, at least for 1 week here. I think, let's put him better than both these guys. Because I think he is better. Didn't quite show it, though. Let's put Devontae there. All right. Deontay Johnson. What did he do? What did he actually do before he got hurt? Again, Deontay going to be out for a few weeks, it looks like, with a hamstring issue. Negative 0.4 EPA per pass. So he continues to suck. 6 targets. Deontay, that was a bad game for everybody, but Deontay is not showing anything here. I had 1 deep target and it cost them negative 0.3 points in EPA. It's a good spot because he does get volume, but he's not a great player. I think he's right here. All right. DJ Moore. What is DJ Moore? This can't be good for him. But DJ Moore. So, okay, DJ Moore, 2 targets, 2 catches, 0.6 EPA per target for DJ Moore. So he did not let this down. The volume let him down and the offense let him down. But he actually did what he was supposed to do in this game. So DJ Moore, I think right now would be a bad spot, but a good player. shocked to see it. Shocked to see it. But yeah, DJ Moore. There we go. Of course I'm still live. I said I was going to do every player. Yeah, you guys don't know me if you think I'm not going to go live and just do all of them. Oh, come on, man. Hold on. I need to get another auth code. Fucking Christ. Oh, I hate having real work to do. I just want to have fun dragging pictures around and reading EPA numbers. DK Metcalf. 0.5 EPA per target for DK. Only 5 targets in this game. Seattle was so fucking bad, man. 2 deep targets in this one. Caught one of them. 0.36 EPA on the deep targets. Metcalf needs more work. Honestly, low-key, not a great spot if this keeps up. Metcalf, I think, is our middle guy here, where he honestly deserves to be Sutton range. Teetering on a bad spot right now. It's going to get better for Seattle, I think, as long as Geno doesn't fully regress back to where he was. But Metcalf, I think, belongs right behind Sutton, right behind theoretical Christian Watson, who didn't do anything in week 1, but not quite as good of a spot as some of these other guys where they're getting targeted more downfield and offenses that actually do press. Like, show us your balls. There you go. There's the ball. So I do, in fact, know ball, as Dustin points out here. Oh, man. Still a lot of receivers. Donovan Peoples-Jones, negative 0.1 EPA per target. 2 targets in that game. Donovan Peoples-Jones, not looking great. Not a great spot. He's going to get better, but this, for right now, just a breeze through him. I don't think that was the best performance for him. Drake London, 1 target, no catches. Negative 0.5 EPA per target. One of the worst performances you'll see. It's not his fault, I don't think, but he did look bad on his 1 target. So, unfortunately for Drake London, he's got to go in the Christian Kirk Chase Claypool tier for 1 week. This is bad. This is a really bad look. This is like one that I would not have a lot of love for if you have a high draft capital, high exposure to him. I don't think it looks that good. Elijah Moore, negative 0.87 EPA per target on 9 targets. Elijah Moore fucking stinks, and everybody talked themselves into him again. And he's just as average can be. Adds really little value to offenses. Has not in the last 2 years done that. Obviously, it's 1 game. The volume is there, but he stinks, so he can go right ahead a little bit of the middle of a good spot. Because again, 9 targets is hard to ignore, but 9.4 ADOT. Deontay Johnson, but worse, I think is where you could say for Elijah Moore. Let's see. Week 1 overreactions that you might have been a year early in your Drew Lock tout. There was somebody who was like, oh, we should trade Drew Lock to the Jets. See, which I think it'd be funny. I don't think that's the best fit for him. But yeah, look, it's possible. Geno got paid too much, though. They wouldn't bench Geno. Like, if Geno has to run incredibly bad or get hurt, I think for Drew Lock to actually get a shot. Gabe Davis had a midday. I don't have the advanced analytics on him, so I'm just going to put him. I think he's kind of a mid player. Kind of a mid spot. He can go in the middle over here. Garrett Wilson, again, same thing, no advanced analytics. I think it's going to be tough for him spot-wise with Zach Wilson throwing him the ball. He also was not great in advanced analytics last year, even though the volume kind of brushed over some of that stuff. I'm going to put him middle of the pack on the superior player side of things, but closer to a mid spot for him. Not a great spot for anybody getting any, honestly, Zach Wilson could improve, but if we're going to take Zach Wilson at face value with what we saw last night, I think Garrett Wilson, you have to say this is unequivocally a downgrade for him. The Devontae Adams potential is completely gone now. All right. Whew, man, this is an echo. Oh no, we got to do George Pickens too, and this is going to be bad. George Pickens, you know what? Still okay. 0.2 EPA per target for him. 7 targets, caught 5, 1 deep target, which was not a catchable ball, so we can't put that on him. Had 2 red zone targets as well. So Pickens, I think on paper, better spot, better player than Deontay. So I'm going to put, he's not quite Debo. Yeah, I guess theoretically I view him as a better spot than Debo. I think he's a better player than Debo too. But yeah, let's put him in near Devontae Smith. That feels pretty good. Jahan Dotson up next. 62 routes run, 7 targets, negative 0.3 EPA per target. God, that's so bad. I don't think that's Dotson's fault either. I think that's all Sam Howell. Didn't avoid any tackles when he caught passes, didn't get targeted downfield, didn't get any red zone targets or inside the 5-yard line targets. So really not too good overall for Dotson in this first game. I think he's better than this, but I think if we are going to take this exercise at face value, I think he's in that Gabe Davis-y tier. John Dotson right here. He's better. He's better than that. That's not on him, but I think that's one that you just can't take it back. It's week 1. It's fine. Jacoby Myers, 0.5 EPA per target, 10 targets, caught 9 of them. Also had 3 red zone targets, 2 targets inside the 5-yard line. Converted that to 2 touchdowns overall in the red zone. Things looking pretty good for Jacoby Myers. Don't expect this volume to hold, but if we are going to take him at face value for 1 week, he belongs right next to Olave. He's in this pack of guys here. Better than Cooper, I think. Not quite Olave in terms of talent. Yeah, I think that's where Jacoby Myers goes. This pack here, by the way, if you have any of the receivers in this pack, I think you got to feel really good. If you have any of the receivers in this pack, a little bit of a worry. That's how I feel about it. Yeah, Jacoby looked like Jimmy G's binky. I agree. But again, so much attention was going Devontae's way, including Surtain, who's still the best shutdown corner. It's either him or Sauce, one of those two guys. But really, still good at the corner enough that I think that's what hurt Devontae, open things up for Jacoby. But the thing, though, is that Jimmy G is not going to force the ball to Devontae like Derek Carr did, I think, or even Aaron Rodgers did in previous years. He's going to feed it to the open guy. So anytime that Adams is in a tough matchup, I think Jacoby's going to have a ceiling. But I don't expect this to hold over the course of a year. But I do think he is like a nice, he's kind of the Devontae to the Devontae Smith to Devontae Adams is AJ Brown, if that makes sense. That's tough with 2 guys named Devontae to say that one. All right. Other guys here, Jalen Hyatt. Do we even need to rank Jalen Hyatt? I don't think he did anything of note. Yeah, negative 0.6 EPA per target on his 1 target. Jalen Hyatt belongs in this tier for now. The basement dweller tier. That's where Jalen Hyatt goes. Jamar Chase. So Jamar Chase, I have talked about. I am a bigger believer in Justin Jefferson by a wide margin. Jamar Chase, though, in this particular game, did actually have a positive EPA per target. Last year was not a positive EPA per target player. In this game, though, 0.1 EPA per target, 10 targets, caught 6 of them. Catch rate for him not looking great, but I don't think that's on him. Did have 1 deep target in that one, and it was a catchable ball, but he didn't convert it. So he has a negative 0.9 EPA per target on deep throws. Jamar Chase, I think, will have better days. Still think analytically he is closer to a Hopkins than we'd like to admit. So I'm going to put Chase above Hopkins' face here. So I'm going to do this every Tuesday. I don't know if I'm going to do this exact form of it every Tuesday, but some concept like it. And might do it on Wednesdays just because that way I can get all the data in. But I'm going to do something. Every day at 11 a.m. on Splash Play, Monday to Friday, GA. We got to do something here. So that's what the goal is going to be. And today it includes going for 2 hours, talking about every single player that's possible. Jameson Williams suspended. He's nothing right now. We're not going to put him on the list. Jackson Smith and Jigba, negative 0.5 EPA per target on his 5 targets, caught 3 of them. No deep ball targets either. No avoided tackles either. Did not show much in this game. Bad role, bad performance. JSN, unfortunately, going down here. What did you miss best ball season? Lucky you were here, man. I was putting up numbers like this every day. I mute when you talk about my misses. Here we go. That could apply for you talking about your wife or talking about the players that you drafted poorly. Jaden Reed did not explode onto the scene with his performance, but did look good analytically. 0.4 EPA per target on 6 targets, caught 3 of them, had 1 rush as well. So that's pretty good. Good ADOT on his targets as well. 18 air yards per target. So Jaden Reed was being used completely differently than he got used in college. So that bodes well. 1 deep target for him of 20 plus yards. Didn't catch it, but it was a catchable ball. Jaden Reed, honestly, this role looks kind of live. Yeah, I think he's kind of got to go in this Watson tier. Jaden Reed and move Watson. These guys can go together. These are both positive roles that I think can bode pretty well moving forward. I like this. Reed, I think, is a worse player, though. Yeah, there we go. There we go. That feels about right. Packers receivers, man. Feeling good about that one. Jalen Waddle, how did he do? Jalen Waddle still had a 0.8 EPA per target, despite the fact he only had 5 targets. He was the best receiver in the league last year, besides Rashid Shaheed. Best receiver per EPA per target, I think, was at 0.55 EPA per target last year. the numbers holding up. 14 air yards per target, 2 deep throws. Both of them were catchable balls, and he caught one. So we had a 0.3 EPA per target on deep throws. Jalen Waddle, man, it's not quite as much volume as the Tyreek role. We obviously will get to Tyreek in a little bit, but it's got to be better than Pickens. I think he's the nexus point between Devonta Smith and George Pickens. Jalen Waddle goes there. How excited would I be about being super heavy Josh Kelly? He probably should be, at least for 1 week. But him getting that much work when Eckler was healthy, like that, he is very much going to be the Tyler Algier to Austin Eckler's Bijan Robinson, and I think that bodes well. So contingent value plus a role, it's all you can ever ask for any of those kind of dart throw late running backs. Jerry Jeudy didn't play. Jonathan Mingo. Mingo, I think, was trash, right? We'll find out. Yeah, Mingo, negative 0.2 EPA per target on 5 targets, only caught 2 of them. Didn't avoid tackles when he caught them. Had 1 deep target, didn't do anything with it. Negative 0.9 EPA on that. Mingo, shitty role. I think a shitty player too, to be honest. I've said that. I'm not a Mingo guy. I think Terrace Marshall's better. So Mingo goes there. Terrace Marshall's not on this board, but Terrace Marshall, for what he did filling in for DJ Chark. Marshall stunk in that one game. Negative 0.5 EPA per target for him as well. 6 targets, only caught 2 of them. 101 air yards, though, in that game. Marshall should positively regress. I wouldn't write off Terrace Marshall. I think Mingo. I've never liked Mingo, so I can't speak about that one unbiasedly. Shout out Cody. The show is awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. Again, like I hope this is helpful. This is my process. I look at everything. I try to evaluate guys, and having to do it on stream, I think, is going to be just for me as much as it is for you guys. Jordan Addison. Good day for Jordan Addison. 0.5 EPA per target, 6 targets in that game. Caught 4 of them. Could run more routes, only ran 36 routes. Going to be tough for perhaps that to make a big jump. But again, caught things, did what he had to do, had the 1 deep target that turned to a touchdown. As a result, he has a 4.5 EPA per deep target right now. That was a better debut for Addison than I thought would have been possible. So Addison, to me, I think he's like Mooney tier. Better than Mooney, maybe similar role. Yeah, here we go. That's where Addison goes. Mingo, sorry. Be wrong. Look, I warn you guys about guys that I don't think are that good. Mingo is just like a low A-dot fucking nothing guy at Ole Miss. He just is chiseled out of granite, and that kind of throws people off the scent. How does Josh Downs get a fucking picture here? Josh Downs, negative 0.2 EPA per target, 7 targets, only caught 3 of them. 33% avoided tackle rate on those catches, though. So he did avoid a tackle. Not a great start for Josh Downs. I think he's better than this, but for what he showed, he's a better Mingo. Slightly better Mingo is Josh Downs right now. Juju's not going to be good, right? Now, Juju just averaged negative 0.02 EPA per target, so not helping, not hurting. He was a lot better last year in Kansas City. No deep targets for him. No red zone targets for him. Yeah, Juju, this is not a great role. 5 air yards per target for Juju. Fuck, man. That's not good. That's not good. He's got to go. Man, he honestly should go. Maybe worse. Maybe worse spot than those guys too. I think he's in the JSN, Gabe Davis, Jahan Dotson area is where I'm going to put Juju. Can we hear Tony? It's coming up. Is that cap available anywhere? It's on the Pete Overzet store, which you can find in the bio down below. So check the description if you want to get the same Splash Play hat that I'm wearing here. Here's a zoom. Woo, I love it. One of my favorite hats. I just feel like I'm always making it dirty because it is a beautiful blue, and I sweat and get gross. Justin Jefferson, even better per target than he was last year. He was a 0.33 EPA per target guy last year. In this first game, 0.46, had 12 targets, caught 9 of them, had 2 deep balls, caught both of them, 2.4 EPA on those throws, avoided tackles at an 11% clip, which could be better, 150 air yards in that game. Honestly, fucking great start for Justin Jefferson. He is the apex predator of the league. He is a top receiver. You'd be lucky to have him. Brandon Ayuk, great too in a different way, but the volume, the ability to get open, and he got open in some really tough spots. They were bracketing him for part of that game. He still got open, still made plays. Jefferson, this is the year, I think, as long as the Vikings don't tank and do something weird, 2,000 yards, I think, for Justin Jefferson is firmly in play. Kadarius Toney. Oh, no. You wanted it. You wanted it. Or Guy Mathology, can we hear Tony? Kadarius Toney, negative 1.9 EPA per target. 6 targets, caught 2 of them. Did have a 100% avoided tackle rate, though, because he avoided 5 tackles on his 1 catch. Is that correct? So he did okay. He did something well. Did have 1 red zone rush. Did have 2 red zone targets. 1 5-yard line target. Honestly, not bad usage for Kadarius Toney. Really poor performance. He has to be qualified as a mid player right now, but this is a better spot than Elijah Moore because he's getting red zone work, getting downfield targets. Here we go. I think it's close to a great spot. It's a Jacoby Myers-y level spot, I think. Maybe a little bit less than that. But Kadarius Toney needs to do better. He will do better. He was like a 0.32 EPA per target guy last year, so it's going to improve. For week 1, though, he's got to be the most mid of mid players. Jalen Hyatt level mid, but with better spot. Definitely a better spot. Must have been on his reverse where he still lost yards. Yeah. Well, all right. Kayshon Boutte is on this list. I don't think we need to do Kayshon Boutte. Keenan Allen. He might be one you guys care about. Keenan Allen, 0.6 EPA per target on 11 targets. That's incredibly good. 2 rushes as well for Keenan Allen. What the fuck happened? I didn't see that in the game. 2 rushes for Keenan Allen. And he actually avoided, got yards after contact on those. He had 9 targets overall, 0.9 EPA. He had 2 deep targets and had a 0.9 EPA on those. This is a really good start for Keenan Allen. I don't know if it's going to hold up. I don't know if he's old. He gets injured a lot. He has got to be in this area, I think. Yeah, I would put him. I don't think he's quite as good as, honestly, with how he played, he was as good as Dez. I think he's right here. I think he's in the middle of Dez and Ridley and not quite Adams, Jefferson tier. That's a hell of a first game for Keenan Allen. I got to give him credit. That is, I worry about my charter stack exposure. As I mentioned, I just didn't want to reach for Justin Herbert and drafts his entire offseason. That is a great start for Keenan Allen. That looks really good. Good for him. Good for him. Marquise Brown. We get to do the exact inverse right away. Marquise Brown did what he could. 0.4 EPA per target for Marquise Brown, 6 targets for him. Had a rush as well, broke it for 29 yards. 5 targets, not a great ADOT, 9-yard ADOT. Not going to do a whole lot for Marquise Brown. No deep targets for him. Did get a red zone target. Not bad usage, not a bad player. I think he is in this Cortland Sutton tier for right now. Marvin Mims. Mims didn't do shit, did he? Yeah, Mims, 0 EPA per target, caught 2 of 2, no deep targets. 2 air yards per target for Mims, so we're not even using him the way that would be the best way to use him based on how he's used in college. I mean, he did perform averagely, so you have to give him that. I think this is where Mims goes. Tough start for Mims. It's going to get better for him, you think, but if that's the rollout without Judy, that is a little bit worrisome, I would think. Do I have to do Gallup? I feel like Gallup is fucking nobody. Gallup, 0s, 2 targets, caught 1. Gallup, you are Marvin Mims. You and Marvin Mims, same dude. Same dude. Tony is the current Antonio Brown. Is off field to get him out of the league. He's never done anything bad as a guy, I don't think. Well, at least that's something I'm forgetting. I think he punched somebody once and has been rude to fans, but he's not. That's a little bit of a sharp comp. Antonio Brown did some really bad things that were very illegal. Tony just seems like a bit of a dickhead, but he can be our dickhead if he's good. So I'm happy to still absorb Kadarius Toney. Michael Pittman. Oh, they misspelled Pittman on here. The disrespect. Michael Pittman. How do these numbers? So this is, I guess, not surprising given what we knew of AR's EPA numbers. 0.02 EPA per target for Michael Pittman. Had 11 targets, though, so the usage is good. 2 red zone targets, 1 inside the 5-yard line. Didn't convert those particular ones to touchdowns, but did have a touchdown. Good usage for Pittman. Didn't perform as good as I would like. Think he is in this slightly better than Hopkins range. So right now, I would put him in a better spot than Jamar Chase. But again, that's just, that's accounting for the Bengals having a down week. But I think Pittman deserves to be in this tier, but he's not proving to be a superior player yet. And the spot has got to hold a pretty big target share. So that's going to be tough for him. But I'll take it, obviously. I'll take it for what it is. Michael Thomas. Curious to see this one, actually. Michael Thomas, again, just rock solid still. 0.2 EPA per target, 8 targets, caught 5 of them. ADOT's not great, 8.5 air yards per target. Caught 1 deep ball, though, so that's pretty good for him. 1.4 EPA on deep throws. Pretty good usage, not quite Chris Olave usage. I think he actually is in this Jalen Waddle, George Pickens tier right now. That is the best spot for Michael Thomas. Let's lock him in there. Got all these guys to go. We're going to do it, though. And then we might skip tight ends for 1 week. Maybe I'll just highlight outliers at tight end. That's what we'll do instead. Mike Evans, 10 targets, caught 6 of them, 0.2 EPA per target. Also had 3 deep shots, which I think is the most out of everybody besides one guy we haven't gotten to yet. So Mike Evans, pretty good start for him. Caught all 3 targets from were catchable balls. Only caught 1 of them, but that's actually pretty good that Baker was able to deliver the ball accurately. Mike Evans should have made more plays, honestly. Should have had a bigger day. So that's a really good start for Mike Evans. Still think that, again, whiffs of this team being just a week 1 wonder, absolutely. But I think for 1 week, Mike Evans belongs near Waddle, ahead of Godwin. Yeah, I think he's in this range. I don't know if I'm perfectly lining him up, but he's in this Waddle, Michael Thomas, Devontae Smith, Chris Godwin range. So I can be interested in Butte's numbers. He ran a surprising amount of routes. Let's see. I'll look at Butte. Butte was out there for 55 snaps and had a negative 1.6 EPA on 4 targets. Granted, he didn't catch a single one of them, but that's like Butte sucks. Like Butte was really bad at LSU, and he was a guy that I immediately took out of like my not even drafted him in the big board stuff. The usage is noteworthy, but there were snaps to go around without Devontae Parker. So maybe it'll get better, but he was not targeted a lot for a guy playing 50 plus snaps. I can say that much. I'm not even going to rank him though, but he stinks. I think he stinks. Mike Williams, 0.2 EPA per target, was a little bit banged up in this game too. So that could be part of it. 5 intended touches in this game, caught 4 of them. No deep targets for Mike Williams, which is not great. Kind of weird that Mike Williams and Keenan Allen flipped in terms of the deep target stuff. This usage for Mike Williams does not look too good, and he didn't perform that great with it. So I think he's DK Metcalf range. I like this show. Podcaster is very solid. Thank you. Thank you. The podcaster agrees, and I appreciate that. All right. Nico Collins. Nico ran 44 snaps, 11 intended targets, caught 6 of them. 0.28 EPA per target. So CJ Stroud is actually creating value for his guys in the way that I thought he would, which is noteworthy because when Stroud plays bad teams, Stroud might have some nice games, which was the hope that I had, but kind of lost faith in throughout the preseason. This is a nice start for Nico. Double-digit targets, made the most of them. He's kind of Jacoby Myers range. I'm surprised. Nico, good start for Nico. Just the volume metrics alone. I like that. I'm impressed. Nico, if he's available in your league, trade for him. I think that bodes pretty well. Let's do, is Robert Woods? Robert Woods is not on the list. Also, let's look at Robert Woods' numbers just so we can reference that too. Robert Woods, 0.13 EPA per target, had 10 of them as well. Looks like the ADOT was lower for him. But Woods I would put in lower of a spot and lower of a player than Nico. I think Woods for me would go somewhere around here, but this is an FYI. But Nico, though, those are shocking numbers for Nico. He's going to have an outlier day one of these weeks coming up. Based on that workload and also just Stroud improving, I think that looks good. Odell. Wow, Odell had 0.9 EPA per target, but only had 3 targets. Did have 1 deep target that he caught, which gives him a 2.5 EPA on that. Odell's okay. This is not great workload overall. I think he's like, this is Brandon Cooksy is what it feels like now. So he's, I think, slightly better Brandon Cooks based on this 1 game sample size. But just the volume there, not too great. Quentin Johnston, of course, a guy that I thought would be a good rookie coming in. Not a lot of work here. Only 22 snaps rather. Got 3 targets though. Negative 0.6 EPA. That is a brutal start for Quentin Johnston. So not great volume, not great effort. He is in the Jahan Dotson, Jackson Smith, and Jigba tier. Probably a little bit lower. It'll get better for Quentin Johnston, but that is a tough start. That is not the one you want to see. Rashee Rice, of course, who people really got excited for right away. The numbers look comparable here. 0.24 EPA per target. Did have just 20 snaps in that game, but was targeted 6 times on 20 snaps. That's pretty crazy. Target per route run from him is at 46%. So definitely getting targeted when he's out in the field. The question is just how much is he going to be on the field? Had one deep target as well. Didn't capitalize on that one. Did capitalize on his inside the 5-yard line target for a touchdown. Rashee Rice, nice debut. Role kind of iffy here. I think the role has to be behind Garrett Wilson so far, but I would put the usage above Odell and Brandon Cooks with similar success. So I think this is a good spot for Rashee Rice. That works. Kendrick Bourne, sustainable. Bourne is not one of the guys on this sheet, but let me look at him. No, I would say Bourne is not sustainable. Negative 0.7 EPA per target despite 11 targets. Downfield, he had 1 target, didn't catch it. Negative 0.5 EPA there. I don't know how he produced what he produced. Just pure volume is what it looks like. Did get 2 red zone targets, capitalized into 2 touchdowns. Bourne is better than Butte in terms of getting volume, but I don't think this holds. I don't think that holds. You can't be that bad in EPA and keep putting up outlier games unless the volume still holds at 11 targets a game. If that's the case, then maybe you can get there. But I think the 2 touchdowns really drove that one more so. And you wouldn't expect to get those 2 touchdowns all the time. If he catches just 1, the day looks materially different. Rashad Bateman. Bateman's going to be a bad one, right? Oh, fuck. Bateman. No, Bateman was okay. 0.2 EPA per target. Only 3 targets, though. The workload not looking great. 25 snaps not looking great. He is in this Odell tier, but I would say slightly worse spot. Honestly, they should be pretty much even, actually. Here, just pretend that Rashad Bateman and Odell here are basically even. Can we play Trey Palmer in DFS again? I don't think I would yet. I think he was always a better in best ball guy. Yeah, 3 targets, 23 snaps. It's not enough work yet. If the Bucs start to go downwardly, that's when Trey Palmer, I think, kicks in. Sky Moore. Oh, this is a fun one. How did Sky do? Sky had a negative 1.6 EPA per target. That is bad. 5 targets, caught 1. They gave him a touch at 11% of the snaps, or tried to give him a touch at 11% of the snaps he was out there. It's not a great number either. Did run a lot of routes. That's positive. 1 deep target, catchable ball. He didn't catch it, which gives him a negative 2.8 EPA. Sky Moore, welcome to the Jalen Hyatt tier. Sky is falling. Roll the clip. Bourne's history says he'll be off more than on. That's true. I think that was the game. That was like the Kendrick Bourne game. And then anything else you get at this point beyond is going to be a bonus. Diggs don't have the advanced metrics on, but he was a stellar EPA player last year. I presume it's going to be the same this year. To me, he should just immediately get placed in this Devontae Adams tier. He is an elite guy. AJ Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Stephon Diggs. Not quite Justin Jefferson, but honestly, you could make the case that Diggs should be at least right here, like overlapping Justin Jefferson. He's that good. Tank Dell. I don't think Tank did much. Tank actually looked pretty good analytically. 0.6 EPA per target, 38 snaps, 4 intended touches, caught 3 of them. Not a bad start. Not enough volume for Tank, though, especially when you have Nico and Woods getting double that amount. So Tank, I think, again, he goes here in this Beckham, Woods, Rashee Rice tier right away. Diggs league winner. Yeah, again, EPA guys, they do that for you. Diggs looked great last night, and he just outperforms everything every single time, and he is as good as anybody in the league, like in terms of those advanced metrics. He and Justin Jefferson stand on a tier alone of being able to get high volume and be that effective with it. So I think that bodes well for the year for Diggs, and happy to have him in best ball. I haven't talked about this. I'm advancing 43 teams on DraftKings right now, advancing 39 teams in Best Ball Mania right now. So I am thrilled. For week 1, for me as a 0 RB guy, that is the best outlay I could have hoped for. But obviously it's still week 1. We have 16 more to go. And I say advance rates don't matter in week 16, week 15, week 14. So they don't matter right now, but made me feel really good and beautiful to have that be what it is after 1 week. T. Higgins is so much better than this and deserves better. Negative 0.8 EPA per target for him. 8 targets, caught none of them. Just a dog shit game by T. Higgins. Did have 3 deep targets. 1 of them was catchable. Didn't catch that. It's going to be better for T. Higgins. The usage looks pretty good, but he is firmly in Kadarius Toney territory. Better usage, but really shit the bed in week 1. T. Higgins goes there. Yeah, there you go. It's the volume, the usage is there. It's all there. It's just, it has to get better. T. Higgins had 134 intended air yards. Like, he was involved enough. It just went as badly as it could possibly go. But there'll be better weeks for T. Higgins. If he's a buy low in your league, trade for T. Higgins. Terry McLaurin. I don't think this is going to be too good for McLaurin, unfortunately. McLaurin, actually not bad. 0.2 EPA per target, 4 targets. Did play 63 snaps despite the toe issue, so that bodes pretty well for him. No deep targets in that game, it looks like, so it didn't help out McLaurin that much on that front. He's got to get healthier. He's got to get better. The usage needs to get better as well. But honestly, he still looks good. So I think he is in this. Terry McLaurin would be in this tier with Mike Williams, DK Metcalf, but I think he's a little bit better of a player than both those guys. Let's see. Did not do the eliminator, unfortunately. All right. Trey Palmer is here. Trey Palmer, I think the usage, as we talked about, he had a few targets, didn't run enough routes. Still a 0.2 EPA per target guy, though. I think based on what we saw this 1 week, he should look like a better player than Gabe Davis and Jahan Dotson, but the workload is stinkier. So he will go close to Tank Dell and Rashad Bateman for me. Treylon Burks. Don't think this one's going to be too good. 0.03 EPA per target. So like he's averaged 4 targets, caught 3 of them, 57 snaps for him. No deep targets. That's pretty shitty usage. Maybe it was a defensive E matchup, so that could be part of it. But yeah, I think for 1 week here, Treylon's kind of got because he's a little better. He's got to go a little bit higher than Gallup, but honestly, worse role, equally bad role. Not a great start for Treylon. Hopkins is really going to upset things. I talked about this a lot in the offseason. Where Treylon Burks, the only big games that Chig had last year was when Burks wasn't out there. Now with Burks out there with Hopkins and Chig, it's like, who is going to get the workload? It's going to be Hopkins, and it's going to be less efficient. It's going to be less exciting. I think it's a bad scene for Burks, and I would be worried about Burks personally. Last few here, including a few interesting ones. Tyler Boyd. Negative 0.5 EPA per target, 3 targets, caught 2 of them, played snaps, no deep targets. Tyler Boyd, shitty role. Obviously, the offense will have better days, but he didn't show anything there. He is in this tier. I'd put him behind, right next to Quentin Johnson. I think it's the best place to put him. Tyler Lockett, 0.05 EPA per target, 4 targets, caught 2 of them. Just a bad day for Seattle. Had 1 deep target. It wasn't a catchable ball. That cost Tyler Lockett negative 0.4 EPA. Bad usage. Not a great start for him. I think Tyler Lockett for 1 week has to go in Treylon Burks' range, unfortunately. Have to wait. He got hurt. That's fair. But still, we're just going off of 1 week here, and that was a bad 1 week. Tyreek, the last guy who will be threatening to be on top here, though I do think you guys are going to be curious about Zay Flowers as well. Tyreek, 0.8 EPA per target, 15 targets, caught 11 of them, had 5 deep targets, caught 4 of them. You don't expect that to hold up, but that is phenomenal. Had 152 air yards on those deep targets as well. Had a 1.8 EPA on those targets. Had 213 or 215 yards in total, 227 of those air yards as well. Tyreek is a beast. He's not Justin Jefferson. The usage and the performance would indicate that he is as good as him, if not better. I am going to put him on top of Justin Jefferson. I think Jefferson is the better wide receiver 1 play. This is a killer effort by Tyreek. So he deserves to be there. He is the top. He's the apex predator. Love that guy. Looking good. Wandale didn't play, so the last receiver will hit is Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers, 0.2 EPA per target, 12 targets, caught 11 of them. Really low ADOT, 2.8 air yards per target, so not explosive, but he did get 2 targets downfield. So really low throws and a couple downfield ones, but caught 2 deep targets of 20-plus yards, had a 1.6 EPA on those plays. Pretty good usage overall. I think Zay Flowers is in the Nico Collins tier. So that's receiver. We're going to do tight ends fast. This is going to be, I'm not going to do every tight end. I'm just going to point out the ones that really did well, because this in particular is a dog shit week for tight ends. But we got to do it here to complete the SPAGS rankings, a 2-hour and 15-minute journey into the abyss. You guys have survived it. We're going to do it. All right, who are the best players? I'm just going to sort and see who are the best tight ends in terms of the EPA numbers, and then we'll go from there. So EPA per pass, tight ends. All right. Here we go. Best tight end overall was Jordan Akins with a 1.9 EPA. Have to presume he's not on this list. Tyler Higbee was number 2, a 1.5 EPA on his 3 targets. But boy, is he getting crushed by just the volume that is going to go to this Cooper Kupp role and whoever's filling in there. And it does seem like Higbee is not on this list. All right. Well, I guess the Fantasy Stock Exchange guys didn't want to put Tyler Higbee on this list, but Higbee I would put closer to being a superior player, but closer to a mid spot for him. Lawrence Cager looked good. Greg Dulcich out with a hamstring. He looked pretty good. Is he on here? I got to put somebody on this board. Greg Dulcich, 1.1 EPA per target, 2 targets. So superior player, really bad spot, especially given that he's hurt. Hunter Henry, Hunter Henry, 0.9 EPA per target, 6 targets, caught 5 of them. Did get 1 red zone target, turned that into a touchdown as well. Relative to tight end usage, I think that Hunter Henry is probably one of the best tight ends in football based off of week 1. Who else is standing out here? Trey McBride, 0.73 EPA per target, only caught 2. That is a pretty good effort. Oh, that's the wrong guy. Sorry. It's Luke Musgrave, who I'll have to look up in a moment here. Put him, he's healthy, so he's got to be ahead of Greg Dulcich, but still not by much. Let's look at Luke Musgrave real fast because I'm honestly just curious how Luke Musgrave did. 0.12 EPA per target, 4 targets. 2 of them were downfield shots, though. So he is retaining that ADOT from college. Had a 17 ADOT overall. That is really fun usage for Musgrave. He's not quite Henry, less volume. And he didn't put up crazy analytics. So Musgrave, I think, goes here. But that's pretty close to a great spot and pretty close to a superior player. If he converts 1 there, I think that'll look pretty good. Juwan Johnson. Juwan was a -1 EPA per target guy on 5 targets. Didn't get any red zone touchdowns or any red zone looks at all. That bodes pretty poorly for Juwan. This is actually a piss poor effort by Juwan. He's got to be a mid player based on that performance, but I think the usage would put him closer to here. So yeah, Musgrave level usage, really shitty effort by Juwan Johnson. So, Kincaid, all right, we're taking Kincaid. I don't have the advanced analytics on yet, but he had 6 targets yesterday. Not high ADOT ones. I think you got to put him behind Musgrave. Again, I don't know the EPA number, so I'm just going to put him in the middle here. But I think Kincaid, Musgrave, same tier, and Johnson really inefficient at the same tier. Is Hunter legit? It's hard to expect Mac Jones to throw 54 times in a game again. That said, it's possible that he maintains a similar workload, but obviously if he throws 45, Henry comes down a little, Bourne comes down a little, Juju comes down a little, Ramondre comes down a little. So I don't think he maintains that usage, but for 1 week that showed enough there. And Hunter Henry still was out there for a bunch of snaps. Hunter Henry was out there for, hold on. No, not Hunter. Who the fuck are all these other Hunters? Hunter Henry was 63 snaps. So he was out there. He's in the hunt. Like any tight end's in the hunt now because of how bad the position's depleted. But yeah, in the hunt. Sam Laporta. Let's look at him. Get all the rookies out of the way. Laporta, 0.3 EPA per target, 5 targets, did play 58 snaps. That bodes well for Laporta. Not any red zone work, though. Or actually, did he? Yeah, no red zone targets, no end zone targets for Laporta. I think he's going to be a better version of Kincaid is where I'd put Sam Laporta for right now. So he's Musgrave, but better. Yeah, I think these guys were all in the same range. Laporta put up a better game than Musgrave based on those metrics. Oh, good. According to Fantasy Headliner guy, Hunter Henry's legit. Well, if he says so, then we must be. Njokic, I presume, would be Njoku. Njoku had tight end. We're just freewheeling here. we're gonna get tight end mostly done. 0.43 EPA per target. 3 targets is not great usage. Did play 54 snaps in that game. Njoku, just a shitty volume. I think the volume puts him behind these guys, but he's a similarly good player to Laporta. So good effort by him. Needs more volume to be a great spot, obviously. And let's see. Anybody else here? I mean, we have some big names. Anybody worth highlighting? Kylan Granson had a 0.37 EPA per target. He's not on this list, but pretty good usage. I think he would be then slightly less good use. I guess same usage as Njoku after 1 week. So he and Njoku, the Colts tight end, generic Colts tight end, would be similar to Njoku after 1 week. Anybody else? Oh, Kyle Pitts. So Kyle Pitts got no fucking work at all. 0.8 EPA per target, though. So Kyle Pitts actually did his thing relative to whatever that means. Did catch 1 deep target as well on 1 throw. So 2.1 EPA on deep throws for Kyle Pitts. That's honestly not a bad effort. We can't say it's a good spot for Kyle Pitts, but that is honestly one of the best marks. So Kyle Pitts here, closer to a bad spot than a good one, but still, because tight end, there's just not a lot of volume for anybody. Got to plant a flag for Kyle Pitts. That is an impressive effort for 1 game, if nothing else. Everybody else here, Hawkinson was kind of mid, 0.13 EPA per target, but 9 targets. So Hawkinson's usage is going to be better than anybody here, but he was not quite as good with it. So that's where Hawkinson goes. Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz was awful, negative 0.5 EPA per target. And we saw that Nico and Woods and Tank were okay. So this is a Dalton Schultz thing. 4 targets, caught 2 of them. Didn't get a deep target. Did get 1 red zone target. Didn't complete it. That is a dog shit effort by Dalton Schultz. So he is in an okay spot, but a bad player. That is really poor. Juwan Johnson territory for 1 week at least. Schultz is hideous. Durham Smythe. There is not a Durham Smythe avatar here, right? But Durham Smythe this week. No, not Payne Durham. Durham Smythe, 67 snaps, caught 7 targets, 0.2 EPA per target. No targets downfield, so you would like to see that increase for Smythe. Did get 1 red zone target, which was inside the 5-yard line. Good debut for Smythe. I don't know who I'd put in for Smythe here. Is anybody? Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft filling in for Durham Smythe. He can go, honestly, he should probably go like right here. Good spot, good player. Yeah, right around Musgrave. Better spot than Musgrave so far. Similar efficiency to Musgrave is Tucker Kraft as Durham Smythe. Evan Ingram, 0.01 EPA per target, 5 targets, caught all 5 of them, had 1 deep target, caught that. So really, and actually that was a 1.9 EPA target catch. So he actually probably was even worse than average. Not impressed. I think Ingram, to me, a little bit better spot than average. And basically, he's not a great player. So he's an average player. That's where Ingram goes. Anybody else here that we need to hit? Waller. Waller, 0.04 EPA per target. 5 targets, caught 3 of them. No deep targets. Did have 1 red zone. No, actually, no, it's Blake Bell. Yeah, nothing in the red zone either. Kind of a shitty debut for Darren Waller. Obviously, all the Giants were bad, but this is not impressive at all. Honestly, he's like, he and Evan Ingram, I'd put right here. Yeah, there's Darren Waller. Freiermuth. I guess I'm just fucking doing this all, huh? At this point, Freiermuth, negative 1.2 EPA per target on 4, only caught 1 of them. The 1 was a touchdown, though. Did have 3 red zone targets, so that's pretty good usage. Usage is there. That is a piss poor performance, though. Better usage than Johnson and Schultz, but similarly bad this week. And these other out. I don't think we need to do Kate Otten. Kittle, negative 0.03 EPA per target on 6 targets. Nothing. 1 red zone target for him. So okay usage, but this is just tight end is really bad, man. Tight end is a very gross position. Kittle, I think, better spot than Kincaid, but looking slightly worse so far. Dallas Goedert, bad game for Dallas Goedert, right? Yeah, Dallas Goedert, negative 1.1 EPA per target. He's going to positively regress, though, because he was I think 0.3 something per target last year. So he was good last year. It was just a tough matchup against New England, but only 1 target for Dallas Goedert. That went poorly. Based off of 1 week, Dallas Goedert was probably the worst tight end relative to expectation, relative to everything. And I think that covers it, right? I think that covers it. Woo. There we go, guys. There's the first SPAGS rankings. I would say in the future, I don't expect this to be a 2.5 hour video. I don't expect it to be serious Christopher Nolan movie length. But this was a fun ride, I hope. Please do remember to subscribe down below. Please hit the like button. Please leave a comment. I'm putting in the work. You guys see the work here live. You see the efforts that we're putting in here on Splash Play. So I would appreciate it if you subscribed and hit the like button to help us get seen by more people. I'm going to come back tomorrow. I'm not sure what I'm going to do tomorrow. But come back tomorrow at 11 a.m. because we're going to do something. I can promise you that much. And then Thursday will be Showdown. Friday will be the Fantasy Football Gauntlet. Splash Play marches on. Follow me at Chris Spags. Follow the show at Splash Play Pod. Go check out probably.com. It's free for now on the site. We're going to have paywalls coming up later in the week, so check it out for free while you can. You can browse every possible betting market in the world to find bets that are actually going to lose you less money and hopefully win you money. But go check that out, probably.com, probly.com. And also don't be afraid to use the promo code SPLASH on Underdog for a $100 deposit match. Shout out to the chat as well. I appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out with me today. And I will see you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. with something. We'll see what it is. See you then. Enjoy your days. I know ball. Bye.